Then I go to share screen. Okay. All right. What is this? Lady Gaga. Need resources? No, we don't need resources. I need to open the Microsoft with Mathias Ungers. Okay. Okay. Just a second. I have to do something about this because I'm still not happy about this. Okay. All right. So I imagine you do see the PowerPoint screen. I will start, of course, with the first page. And Florian, please, anytime you feel like saying something, please do so. Do not even, ask for, because I think it's important to have a dialogue and we can all learn from each other. And not just him, anybody who wants to say something, let's do so. So, yeah, kind of quickly, what is happening here? Okay, so he died in 2007, and I knew of him since when I was studying architecture. His work was published extensively. All the major magazines published his work, and it was impossible not to take notice, because he was a so-called rationalist, and very much so, almost to the point of metaphysics. The perfection of his rationalist architecture is unbelievable. Yeah, I think in a strange way, perhaps, he transcends pragmatism and function and becomes almost surreal. Anyway, we'll arrive there. But one step at a time. This is the architect in his later years. A very serious architect, and we need serious architects, I think. But we also need those inspired, I think, by Erasmus. Not that Erasmus was not serious. He was one of the best scholars ever, but he also understood that human nature also has, some call it weakness, other people call it richness. It depends how you look at it, Anyway, this is, I think, with a portrait, a sculpture of Schinkel. Yes, it's a nice picture and a nice company. Yeah, I admire Schinkel very much. Okay. And I think he has a better taste in eyeglasses than some of the stars of today. Anyway. Now, I don't think I plan to incorporate here some of his drawings, and I forgot to do it. Forgive me, but we'll see some plans and sections and so on when we talk about specific projects. This is a house. This period, really, Florian, I'm particularly aiming at you. I truly am very interested in the German architecture of the 50s. And early 60s, maybe all the way to 68 or so. But there are very interesting things, and continuously I discover very interesting things, and unfortunately some of them, even in Germany, get destroyed, and one of his houses, at least you'll see, demolished. This house in Köln, I think it's excellent. I mean, I don't think Mies with his early houses was better than Ungers. I only regret in a way that he refined his vocabulary to the point where he forgot his beginnings. But I like this building very much, and you'll see other pictures of it. And it's not the only house. Is actually his own house, and look at it. I mean, this is a picture of almost the present, and I think it stands the test of time. Yeah, it's not bad at all as far as I can tell, and so very different from what he did later. And you'll see what I'm talking about. Later, he evolved towards some kind of Wittgenstein aesthetics, if I can call it so, you know, extremely refined, but somehow too refined and too perfect and too symmetrical. But here we have a playfulness that is not frivolous at all. It's convincing. A fine building. I would put any time this building near the buildings by Mies, and it will not be inferior to Mies. I'm talking about the early Mies van der Rohe. Okay, this is a model. The model is, I guess it was intended in this way anyway, a little bit rough, but it's okay. It's a model and part of a large exhibition with his works. Now we arrive at another house, the Steimel house, also good, excellent, and this one was destroyed. And what a shame, I think. You know, I think this house is also very good, and why it was destroyed, I have no idea. You'll see pictures of it, and unfortunately, this madness with demolishing goes on everywhere in the United States, in Europe, maybe in some other places too, although I hope not, that this is not happening. But here you have, you know, a house that obviously was not in bad shape. Maybe it was abandoned, but it could have been kept, and it was not. And it was done by a major German architect. So I don't understand, really. Well, he had a collaborator here, and unfortunately, I didn't write down his name, but it was him, part of a duo. He had a collaborator. A good building, I think, and built very well, and nothing wrong. How could you demolish such a building? It's beyond me. But you know, those who demolished it probably would find excuse in the invitation of Erasmus to foolishness, to folly. I don't know, but Erasmus meant something else, not this kind of foolishness, but a different kind, although maybe some people get confused. Anyway, a very good building by Ungers and his partner. And yeah, this is not, the resolution is not great. And then you see, maybe Florian, you could translate for us what's written here about Haus Steimel.
Haus Steimel in Hennet was unlawfully flattened.
Unbelievable. Yes, it was. Look, can you believe it? I mean, how is it possible, you know? And for what? I only hope they didn't make a parking lot there, you know, like they did in the state of New York with Larkin Building by Frank Lloyd Wright. They raised it, they flattened it to make a parking lot. Anyway, yeah. In fact, we should look more often to such images and look like in a mirror in a way, and see what we are capable of when we are not sufficiently sensitive and careful. Okay, what is this? Sorry. Okay, now we go to the German Architecture Museum in Frankfurt, which is kind of still an early work by him. And unfortunately, postmodernism began to pop up, and once we entered in the 80s, it was very, very difficult to escape its I would call it shadow, actually. But here he was dealing with an existing building, and he you know, transformed it for this function, the Architecture Museum. And he did a good job, but you feel a little bit the influence of what is called postmodernism. Although he was very careful in the sense that he was very discreet about it, and you know, he cultivated a certain level of abstraction that allow him to escape, you know, the problems other architects faced. Although you can tell that there is this kind of from the 80s, but his seriousness and the abstract qualities of his work make it still legitimate. But yeah, it was an unfortunate period in the history of architecture, I think, and other people were destroyed by postmodernism. I think Michael Graves was one of them. Yeah, he works a lot with grids, and I regret I didn't include, and I wanted to, and I ask for forgiveness, drawings, because some of his drawings, which are also kind of an artistic nature, have an artistic quality, although they are related to architecture. They are abstract, and they have this interest, intense interest in the grid, in squares, but there is something in them that makes them escape being cold or lifeless. Now, Torhaus is a tower now, Torhaus in Frankfurt, also from that unfortunate period, 80s. But even here, you know, he's not playing with historical styles the way so many did at that time. No, he knows where to stop. And so it's only obliquely so-called postmodern what he did. You know, you could very well say that it's actually modern, not postmodern, but there, somehow, you know, a certain symmetry and the usage of these windows, kind of like in Aldo Rossi. There is a certain, you could say that there might be some kind of connection between the two, although there are also very big differences. And now that Florian told us that Rem Koolhaas was the student of Ungers, I kind of see in the early works of Rem Koolhaas something perhaps you know, connected with Ungers. If you are so kind to turn off the microphone, thank you. Well, I imagine, I don't know, maybe, I mean, I don't know. I knew that Rem Koolhaas studied at AA in London, but maybe he also studied in Berlin, or Ungers also taught at AA, because he was a very acknowledged and appreciated architect.
I have to reread that, but I think he did his thesis on the Berlin Wall as a piece of architecture, but I need to, I read it a couple of years ago, and you know, my memory is also not the best anymore. So I don't know if he studied there, but I think yes, he studied with Ungers, but I need to check that. I will.
No, I'm sure Ungers also taught at AA, because he also taught in the United States, and he was very, very appreciated also by the Institute of Architecture and Urban Studies that was founded by Peter Eisenman, and yeah, he was part of the forefront, so to speak. You know, as opposed to the so-called obvious or classical postmoderns, he is very, very discreet. You know, he still uses that, you know, the modernist aesthetics, but here and there you can tell. I mean, if you compare him with Kengo Kuma, I mean, if you know that outrageously vulgar postmodern building built by Kengo Kuma, you wouldn't believe your eyes. I mean, it's incredible that an architect of his stature would do something like this. And if you remind me after we end this, I can immediately find a picture with it on the web. It is, when I discovered it, I couldn't believe my eyes. So Ungers would not make such mistakes, and good for him. Anyway, now this is plaza. I don't know if I have pictures with it. For some works, I didn't find pictures. No, I don't. But you know, maybe you will if you are interested in his work. Now, this is a library in Karlsruhe, also from the time when postmodernism was ruling, and again, he is discreet about it. Yes, there is order, there is rigor, but he's not playing games with suggestions coming from postmodernism. That there is, maybe you'll see in one picture at the inside some kind of historical reference, but very refined and very abstracted. So again, Ungers knew how to avoid the trappings of postmodernism. Yes, this you could say, has references, of course, even to the Pantheon, but it's reduced to essentials, and it's not bothering me, and I imagine it's not bothering other people. So there is a dialogue with history, but it's done in reticent terms. Now we arrive at a building, Institute for Polar and Marine Research in Bremerhaven. It's a large building, and I think it's well done. You could see maybe buildings kind of this size, in Peter Behrens, and there is some kind of architecture here that connects maybe with some early buildings of the 20th century. But again, here is an architect who assimilated, digested history in a profound way, and when there are some, let's call them, references, they are very, very discreet, and this is a quality he has. This is a modern building, but you can tell that it didn't come from the blue sky, that there is a certain tradition that he is and was part of, and without mimicking anything. Yeah, I think a good building. And it is the function for marine research. Well, it has something of a boat now at the top. So even its symbolism, expressed aesthetically, is correct without being facile or, frivolous. Now, this is a building in Berlin, quite large, but I didn't find excellent pictures. Also, you have to understand what I do here is more like an invitation for further study. So because this is his birthday, I thought we could, inspire ourselves and also pay homage to an architect who was important and who still is. And, but this can be developed and should be developed. And I'm glad that we have this chance, for discussions and to prepare these PowerPoint presentations. If the pandemic is not allowing us to travel, at least we can travel through imagination and through learning, through study. Yeah. Now inside, of course, the present time needs also some kind of excitement with strange, maybe columns or totems, or I don't know how to call them, homages to consumerism, I imagine. Anyway, the residence of the German ambassador in Washington, D.C. from 1994, quite a large building. Here is just a fragment. So obviously he had the important commissions, and so this shows his status in you know, in the community of architects in Germany and Europe and in the world at large. I still miss a little bit those early houses, but that might also be my problem, because lately I became a little bit reluctant towards repetitiveness, but not necessarily, because as I said, and I will say it again when we arrive at those works, you can use repetition, rhythm, and exactly through them achieve some kind of you know, almost a surreal quality, or poetical, if you want to use a word that is less specific. Okay, now building a house in Cologne, which is exactly about what I mentioned, and he called it, I think, or it is called, quite interestingly, House Without Qualities. And I imagine it's a reference to Robert Musil, the Austrian writer who wrote a book, Man Without Qualities. And of course, it's something self-derogatory here, because actually the house has a lot of qualities, but they are hidden behind a discretion that is, yes, it almost transforms the house into something almost dreamlike. And this is, I think, very interesting. So this architect who was and is a sophisticated, well, I say is because in a way he didn't die. We talk about him and he's relevant to architecture. So this sophisticated and cultured and serious architect called his house a house without qualities, you know, and this makes me think of the Ludwig Wittgenstein's house in Vienna, where you had a philosopher built for his sister a big villa, and where he labored for 2 years, you know, some incredible details, you know, because the philosopher couldn't be superficial. And he was a great philosopher who became a good architect. And here I think is the opposite. We have a very good architect who is becoming a philosopher. The name House Without Qualities kind of says it. You would say, so what's so special about this house? Well, what's so special about this house is that it is perfect. This is what is special, you know, and I think even the tree, leafless as it is, agrees with me. It is perfect. I mean, in terms of, you know, like a house, it is perfect. It's, what else can you say? And it's not so simplistic as you might be tempted superficially at the beginning. And you'll see the plan, and I think it's an excellent house. Look at the section. It's perfect. It is perfect. It is a perfect building. Of course, I am attracted by the madness of, you know, excessiveness and sometimes organicism and bioarchitectures, but I cannot be indifferent to the perfection of this section. You know, because I feel, this is strange, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel that in the simplicity, the simplicity of this section of this house is actually a deep thinker and maybe a melancholy thinker and a philosopher, you know, and I'm not the best analyst here, I need help. But a more inclined person towards analysis, architectural analysis, I think can discover interesting things here. And what attracts me immediately, almost in a primitive way, is what I call a discrete betrayed symmetry. And why do I say betray? Because, well, it is symmetrical, but as you can tell, there is a little bit of a so-called betrayal. And I'm always attracted by something like this, you know, and it's the same in nature, you know, even my face or anybody's face thing appears to be symmetrical, but in actuality, there is a certain level of betrayal. The same in this section. You know,
May
please, Florian.
sorry, I don't want to interrupt abruptly, but you know, it reminds me a little bit to the whole Palladian Villa 9 square grid here in section, and that the plan probably also looks a little bit like that. You know, as a sort of starting where also Eisenman, you know, made his experiments. I mean, he didn't experiment on it, but it's sort of a contemporary version almost of that, no? Or a modern version of the Palladian Villa idea.
No, it's interesting that you mentioned Palladio, because we'll arrive at another house by him, which is frequently compared to Palladio. And this section, which is a modern section through a modern building, but it has something, unless I'm fantasizing, but I don't think I'm fantasizing. There is something almost mysterious, although you would wonder, what is mysterious? What could be mysterious here? And I think it's exactly because of it. First, the proportions, and then this slightly betrayed symmetry. It is, I think, a building that is alive exactly because of it. Look at the plan. It's metaphysical. It's, you know, it is metaphysical. In fact, when I first saw it, I didn't even believe it was the plan for this house, because, you know, the functions also, you know, on one hand, you have on the left, that left so-called column in plan, the stair. On the other side, you have the kitchen. But there is also a resemblance between them that kind of, you know, at the first sight, you don't see the difference, but the difference exists. And then, you know, the little spaces at the periphery, which are not identical, you know, they appear to be identical, but there are slight differences. I think it's a very interesting house, and myself, I'm tempted to analyze it more after we say happy birthday to him, because I think it's a very interesting house. And is the Schinkel again? I don't know. I mean, look at this. You know, in the evening or in the morning or midday, it's still. Yes, it makes me think of Wittgenstein house for his sister in Vienna. Although that one is also asymmetrical, but it has the same care for the openings into the walls, and you can tell that here Ungers was a philosopher. Pardon?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Dan, I didn't mean to interrupt my...
No, please.
It is just a proportion of this building that is... Oh, I'm sorry. I have to go. Sorry, I'll come back to you.
Okay, all right. Yeah, you know, yes, the proportions are exquisite, you know, but it's more than just the proportions, I think. I mean, this interstitial space at the periphery is kind of unusual and interesting, because they are not balconies, they are not alcoves, they are not verandas or loggias. They are these smaller spaces that are transitional. They are transitions between the inside and the outside, and yet, I mean, they are inside, but they also are kind of homages, if we have to use this word, maybe a little bit, maybe a little bit inappropriate, towards the outside. I never saw the plan of a house like this.
Well, what I find fascinating about this plan is sort of that it tries to completely do away with sort of secondary furniture. So everything is integrated into those walls, the storage, the cupboard, the kitchen, the stairs going up. So it's like a thick wall, a deep wall, which is everything is inside, hidden inside these walls, that you have like the purity of this spatial configuration.
Yes, it does seem that you know, the furniture is somehow part of architecture, and it's you know, in less skillful hands, this might have been or could have been maybe rigid, but no, this is not rigid. There is no rigidity here. And maybe, yes, it's mainly because of they are very well proportioned. It's a very interesting building, really. It deserves more than I'm able now to offer. But yeah, good job, Ungers. I mean, look at the two. I mean, the same facade, and they are in a way very different. And I think that space at the periphery, which creates I never saw something like this being done. Very interesting house. It makes me think actually of what Louis Kahn said. Louis Kahn said that in old times, let's say until the Renaissance, or anyway, centuries ago, or maybe even more than centuries, he said the world was very thick, and the light, when it broke the wall to enter the room, it had to break a very thick wall. And in that interstitial space between the outside and the inside, light found its body, its concreteness in a way. It became almost physical. And he said the more we advanced towards modernity, the wall became thinner and thinner. And now we cover the window with curtains. But in you know, sufficiently remote past, there were no windows. There were just those penetrations into the thick wall, just as is the case at Ronchamp by Le Corbusier in the south wall, and only in the southern wall, which is completely different, as you know, from all the other walls of Ronchamp. And there is another, you know, I mean, we can dedicate an evening just talking about that plan. What made Le Corbusier use two kinds of drawing of walls? You know, one medieval, I call it medieval because in some portions it is 2 meters wide, maybe even more, or thick. And the windows are like those that Kahn mentioned, when the light, in its attempt to break into the room, in that interstitial space found its body. And I see the same thing here. The house is modern, the walls are not thick, but because of that, the double wall at the periphery, on particularly on the long elevations, you see is that interstitial space that makes the house both modern and somehow mysteriously belonging to, I don't know, to another time, if I'm not fantasizing. Very interesting house. And it's rational, but it's also kind of irrational because of these subtle things. A less skillful hand or a less skillful architect would have made this building, you know, maybe decent or acceptable, or but this is more than decent or acceptable. And look at the plan and the section. Everything is perfect here. And actually, it would be interesting to compare the kind of perfection Ungers achieved here with the perfection Mies van der Rohe, you know, longed for and at times, I guess, achieved. Because they are very different architects. But it would be also interesting, as I said, to compare his early houses, those 2 or 3 that we saw at the beginning, with the early houses by Mies. Okay, the Museum of Contemporary Art in Hamburg from 1995. You know, this kind of, you see already he's moving towards a certain kind of architecture. There is a relationship between this building and the previous building, except that this is a public building, of course. But there are subtle things as well here, and the same rigor. He's a rigorous architect explicitly and implicitly, but he's also poetical. I don't know about this facade as it is drawn, because as you can see in some of his buildings, there is at the top some kind of a, you know, suggestion of a part of a building with a sloping roof, but you do not actually see this when you are near the building. You see it in the drawing. The drawings actually seems to be a little more, you know, maybe a little bit naive in a way, but the building is not. And yeah, so sometimes the drawing doesn't tell the whole story. And you know, the plans are also, of course, you have a lot of functions here. It's a complex building. But even in terms of graphics, if I had a graphic work with just these 4 plans, I would put it on the wall, because it is, yeah, it is regular. I mean, the square is square, you know, you have a lot of, but all those functions at the periphery kind of bring in that, as I called it yesterday, you know, the impressionism of a certain kind of architecture. So you have rigor, you have geometry, but you also have life, and you also have the accidents of, you know, as life is. So it's a, to me, it is a warm drawing with these 4 plans. And I don't even have to really know exactly what is going on. There are some look like they are apartments, but they cannot be apartments because they are at least at the top, because they are, this is a museum. But what an interesting idea, you know, to have clusters or islands with small rooms like in traditional architecture. It's almost as if it is, they are little houses. Well, not so little, you know, almost like houses or villas around the plaza. But this, the interior of a building. I'm talking about the 2 plans at the top. The other 2 are different. Interesting. No, he was a very important architect. Yeah, towards outside is, you know, what can I say? You know, maybe from today it looks a little bit too regular or wide, but again, maybe we need some kind of ordering edifices. We need such seriousness again, maybe, and maybe without maybe. I don't know about this platform, this you know, pedestal, or I don't know how to call it. But even here, you would say that there is a certain duality. You know, it is as if there are 2 systems at work, and yeah, interesting. Even this building is interesting, and this convincing inside too. You know, I don't know why I'm thinking now of Otto Wagner. Well, maybe because in 1 or 2 days it will be Otto Wagner's birthday, and of course we have to meet, because Wagner was Wagner. And I was talking about I mean, I had in my mind his postal office in Vienna, which is a major work. And right across the street is that spider penthouse by Kopp Himmelblau, which is totally different from what Wagner did. But yeah, what a pleasure really to, and I invite any of you to, if you feel inspired by a certain architect, please make a presentation. And because I would like this to be a collective activity, and we can learn so much, and these architects inspire us. I'm convinced about it.
I think what is interesting, it seems like it's a lot of this design is in response to the previous buildings, or which are there, sort of the first building, and then the extension, and then his as another one, because the old Kunsthalle is also sort of this classicistic building with this central and symmetrical aspects, and maybe this is a response to it.
Yeah, it's possible. I didn't think of it. Yes. You know, even you look at the stairs on the left, you know, you wonder what's going on there, you know, because they seem to be in elevation, but it's a plan. But that's because that's a sloping surface. And there are interesting things here, you know, and again, discrete betrayals of the symmetry. Look at this here. What are they? Ramps, but they are not perfectly symmetrical, because if they were, this one should have been the other way, and also here. So he uses slight deviations from a very rigid symmetry. Although at the first sight you say it's perfectly symmetrical, it's not. It's almost perfectly symmetrical, and that's why it is a little bit. It has this quality, which I imagine, and I also know Palladio has, and I use the word imagine because I actually participated in 5 conferences that Peter Eisenman gave many years ago in New York at Cooper Union on Palladio. So at that time, Peter Eisenman was obsessed by Palladio, and he tried to explain in a rational language the mirage, the miracle that we call Palladio. And I didn't understand a lot. In fact, I am afraid I didn't understand almost anything what Eisenman said. But I know what I felt when I visited some buildings by Palladio. There is something there that you don't know exactly where does it come from. It seems that everything is clear and simple, but it's not like that. Anyway, now, how do you translate this, Florian? Dorotheenhöfe?
Oh, maybe this is just, I mean, Dorothea
just a name.
Name, and the courtyards, and Hof is a courtyard. So there's several courtyards in.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. It's actually a building. I think it's I don't know, a department store or. But you know, when I think now about the tower, not the tallest, but the tower that Alvaro Siza built in Manhattan, with a language somehow similar, I mean, architectural language to what Ungers did here. You know, somehow I like more what Ungers did. You know, again, you say, well, what's so special about this building? And I probably at first I wouldn't know what to say, but I like it. It's inserted there. It belongs to there, and it doesn't want to scream anything, you know, individualistically or you know, to scream its originality. It's you know, at the first sight I can compare the windows, the rhythm. It is distinct from the building on the left and distinct from the building on the right. And yet, so it has individuality, but it's not screamed, it's not alarming, it's not scandalous. I think this is a great quality for an architect to be able, with reticence, to create individuality. So this is not by him. Okay, and now another museum in Cologne. This is a more recent work. I think it was. No, he was still alive. He died in 2007. This one is a little bit different, at least, you know, seen from above. You know, there is a certain level of imperfection on the roof, on the terrace, but I don't think he was responsible for that necessarily. Inside, sorry for the Alami, the Alami alarms, visual alarms. Yeah, the same architect. But here again, he is convincing. I am sure that if I was there, I would enjoy very much looking at those paintings without being distracted by an architect who would tell me, you know, look at me, don't look at the paintings. No, you would look at the paintings here. but the building doesn't lose its relevance in the process. As opposed to the Louvre done by Kazuyo Sejima and her partner, which is a very interesting building, and I like that building very much from the outside, but inside, I think they failed. Here, the ceiling is not heavy. I mean, yes, the structure is clearly expressed, but somehow it goes with the rest. In the building done by Sana, the ceiling is really heavy compared with the ineffable, aesthetics of the building. Otherwise, it's not maybe now the time to say too much about that building, but somehow I am thinking of it when I look at this work by Ungers. And yeah, even seen from this point, from this angle, the building kind of makes me think a little bit of even of the Museum of Contemporary Art built by Sana in New York. Although there are no windows, and here you have some windows, but otherwise, it's a form of aesthetics that certain architects still favor or favor today without still. And this picture also is convincing. You see the old building, you see the new building, but because he breaks the big volume into those three, and this is a connection, some kind of a, sorry, I hear again some the strange noises. Please be kind and turn off the microphone, unless you want to say something, about anything. You see, he through simple means, he connects with a church nearby by fragmenting his building in these three, in the rhythm of these three, blocks, or how to call them, which connect with the tower of the church. And so he was a subtle architect. Okay, and now I think this is the last work by him, The Entrance to the Ruins of a Roman Bath in Trier. I couldn't find satisfying pictures. I found a few, and I'm not very sure what this means, the entrance, because I think he also designed something else here, but it is mentioned only just the entrance to this, the ruins of the Roman Bath. Yeah. And now we arrive, I forgot, this is probably the last work, and this is not bad at all. This was referred to as being, connected with Palladio, and not without reason, actually. It's again, it's an almost surreal building, done in with rational or rationalistic means. And this shows that even rationalism can be moved towards poetry when it is done intensely and with what I would call some kind of metaphysical, in the absence of another word, with some kind of metaphysical intuition or concern, or I don't know. But I do believe what Frank Lloyd Wright said, that a great architect has to be a poet. And Ungers is a poet, even if he doesn't write poetry. It's not about writing poetry with words, it's about so-called writing poetry with bricks. Yeah, this is a surreal building, it seems so simple, but it's not simple, and it's not simplistic. And yeah, in fact, I almost feel like writing now something comparing it with Palladio's famous Villa Rotonda, although this is different, but this also seems to have 4 stairs on all 4 sides of the building, at least on 2 I see, and I don't know if I have a plan. I do, but I don't see here the stairs, the entrances, but I see in the picture below 2 stairs, not as emphatic like in the case of Villa Rotonda. Maybe you know, but Goethe was fascinated by Villa Rotonda of Palladio. He thought that is the perfect house that connects man with cosmos, and the house and the man within with the 4 cardinal points. And he was probably right. Here there is no round central space; it's square, but I still think this is a superior building, and it deserves more attention from me because I didn't have sufficient time to reflect on it and study it. It's a good building, and inside, you know, yeah, you can tell, you know, those columns, but again, Ungers is handling his historical references with a lot of reticence and even modesty, so it's fine. I even see some kind of, I mean, Charles Mackintosh was very different from Ungers, but somehow, I don't know, these tall windows, and I think the chairs by Charles Mackintosh would sit kind of well here. Those uncomfortable thrones. Yeah. Okay, that's it. So happy birthday, Oswald Mathias Ungers. And now we'll go to, unless you want to say something, if you want to talk a little bit about him, we could. Otherwise, I go to someone very different, to Buckminster Fuller. What should we do?
Very shortly, I like the what you mentioned earlier, the Sana, not comparison, but relationship. I find it quite interesting because, you know, if you look at the 21st Century Museum and Kanazawa in Japan, I'm so fascinated by this floor plan that you have like this clear outline shape, and then the complexity is sort of almost like a fractal, I mean, developed into the interior. And in a way, it seems also a little bit with his work, sort of this subdivision towards the interior rather than the exterior, in a way. I mean, even though it's not one-to-one comparable, but there is some, I cannot put my finger completely on it, but some elements which are seem to have the same root of thinking or something in that direction.
Yes. Anyone else wants to say something? Or if not, I'll begin with Buckminster Fuller. You know, it just happened that they are both born on the same day. Otherwise, they are they have nothing in common. Okay, I'll begin with, and then we can always talk later about both, or you know, just a second. I need to open the. What is going on here? Why is it that I cannot open this PowerPoint presentation? And strange. Ah, here he is. Okay. Okay, so okay. He was called Bucky. He wanted to be called Bucky, and I don't know if Bruce here is here. it would have been nice if he was here. I did send him an invitation, but maybe he didn't read it. It would have been nice to have an engineer with us, because Fuller was also an engineer, and his structures require some knowledge which I do not have. But we'll pay homage to him by looking at his work, and at least it will be something. Apparently, he was. I mean, he's considered a genius in a way, and I have a good relationship with the school where he studied in Illinois, in the United States, and maybe at some other time we can invite someone from there to tell us more about him. He also taught there, I think, the Southern Illinois Institute of something like this it is called. Anyway, a handsome man as a young man. So he was born in 1895. So here he was at, about 1920 or so, so 100 years ago. This is a house with an interesting name, and I imagine the name derives from somewhere or something, and I didn't have time to investigate, and I regret, and I apologize. But so he was 33 years old when he made this house, the Maxion house. I kind of like, and I used to do this too, to write. It's actually very interesting. Maybe one day I will show you some of my very early projects which I did for competitions in Japan, where I also used writing the way he does here, because what you see there, that is actually a text, but a text that becomes almost like in illuminations, medieval illuminations, that there is a tension between the drawing and the words. And the words, I'm sure they describe something there, but it's impossible to read at the scale of the resolution of this drawing. So he was a dreamer, of course, an utopian, an utopist. This is him looking at a model of the house, a section of the house. So even by today's standards, Buckminster Fuller is considered a futurist, not that futurist of Marinetti and the Italians, but futurist in the sense of, foreseeing a certain future. And yeah, I'm not sure someone with a conventional architectural training would do something like this. Most surely not. But yeah, so he was many things. He was a designer, a writer, an engineer, an architect. He even designed cars, and Sir Norman Foster, he rebuilt his car, and you'll see it. You'll see the car, and you'll see Sir Norman Foster, quite proud of his achievement. Again, just like in the case of Ungers, I'm not an expert in Fuller. If I am an expert in something, it is in my attempt to not forget a certain significant history. This doesn't mean that I know it very well, but I have an immense desire to learn and to be able to make other people connect with that past. And Fuller is part of that past, maybe not distant, too distant, but still a past which didn't pass, because I think he's still relevant, because I think we still need dreamers. I think we still need what is called visionaries. We need visions. We need visions for a better world. Sometimes those visions are wrong. Other times they are not. Many times they are not implemented. That's how life is. But I think it's important to continue to dream, because what is the alternative? And we have problems. We have, as you know, many problems to handle. So I think we do need idealists. And I totally believe that Stephen Hall was right. when he said, when he was asked, what do you recommend young architects and students? He said, remain idealistic. The soul needs the ideal more than the real. Now, not too many people talk about the soul, but it still exists. And apparently its weight is 28 grams. I read in a project by some Chinese architects that a project for some kind of vertical cemetery for a big metropolis. And apparently when someone dies, the weight of that someone becomes deprived of 28 grams. And that person who made the project said, well, I guess that's the weight of the soul. Who knows? Anyway, back to the house, this futuristic house of I almost said Sir Buckminster Fuller, but he was not British. He didn't become a baron like Sir Norman Foster did. Well, he did also. He designed prefabricated bathrooms for this house too, but also independently of this house. I like the way he draws. It's like, I mean, I don't know if he himself with his hands did the drawing, but this way of dividing so many parts, you know, to describe so many parts of the I don't know, I guess the bathtub or the bathroom with numbers, it reminds me of old encyclopedias. This is the house, but we'll see more. He even lived in such a house with his wife. There are various prototypes, if I can call them so, built. The one he actually lived in had to be refurbished. And you would say, well, it's not a big house. No, it's not a big house. His idea was, this was a constant in his life, to do more with less. And you would say, well, there's nothing original about this. Mies also advocated a certain more-ness with less-ness, if I can say so. Yeah, but I think he meant something different. You know, his language is not necessarily minimalist. He wanted to use the least resources and create a maximum with those resources. And what is funny here, for example, you know, the little two curtains left and right around the futuristic round the windows, you know, it's such a nostalgic accessory, you know, that little curtain. Anyway, but the house, yes, is like a part of a spaceship, or I don't know, ready to be sent to Mars or something. Here is some kind of a model. Yeah, and here is a plan. As you can see, you know, he imagined two units, one next to the other one, and yeah, he was a dreamer, no doubt. I don't think the American dream, as it is conventionally conceived and expressed, tempted him so much. I mean, what American would live in such a house? Maybe the homeless people that Kanye West wants to build houses for now, kind of similar to this. This, for American standards, is an almost unbearably small house, if we can call it house at all. Yeah. You can tell this is not a man who received conventional training in architecture, because no architect would describe the specifics of elements, architectural elements in this way with numbers, and then have a legend somewhere, I guess. So in 1927, allow me to read you this because it's, I think, important. Fuller resolved to think independently, which included a commitment to the search for the principles governing the universe. Yes, he mentions the universe all the time, and help advance the evolution of humanity in accordance with them. By the way, he is considered now very relevant to the ecological movement and even to sustainability and so on. Finding ways of doing more with less, to the end that all people everywhere can have more and more. Now this is American, all right, you know, to have more and more. Do we really need to have more and more? I don't know if you know, but Jean-Paul Sartre, the French writer, and maybe he was not the first one to say it, but I read in him that there are three essential verbs: to be, to have, and to do. And you cannot have one without the other two. And it's kind of true. But I'm afraid in our time, in the present, and a certain past, recent past, we became obsessed with to have, less with to be, and yes, with to do, because in order to have, you have to do. But I think all three of them are indeed essential. And if you don't have one, you cannot truly have the others. And I believe it is time to reconsider what we mean by to be, because this obsession with to have more and more, you know, we reduce life to having, but it's not enough. Not because we don't have more and more things, because our life is deprived of other qualities, like, for example, the contemplative life. Anyway, I move on. So in 1928, Fuller was living in Greenwich Village and spending much of his time at the popular Café Romany Marie's, where he had spent an evening in conversation with Marie and Eugene O'Neill several years earlier. Fuller accepted a job decorating the interior of the cafe in exchange for meals, just like any poor artist, giving informal lectures several times a week. And models of the Dimaxion or Dimaxion, I don't know how it is pronounced, house were exhibited at the cafe. Isamu Noguchi arrived there during 1929. Konstantin Brâncuș, the sculptor, an old friend of Marie's, had directed Isamu Noguchi to the cafe. And Noguchi and Fuller were soon collaborating on several projects, including the modeling of the Dimaxion car based on recent work by Aurel Persu. Now, this text was not written by a Romanian, but there are two references to two Romanian people, Brâncuș and Aurel Persu, of whom I knew nothing. And I searched, and he was apparently the one that influenced and inspired Fuller with he got a patent in Germany. He was an engineer, a Romanian engineer who discovered something very interesting about the car of the future, to be aerodynamic. And I think I read something like this, that Aurel thought of the car of the future to be kind of, in terms of shape, kind of like a tear, if I remember correctly. Anyway, it's very interesting, all of this. And you see now their house, where he lived with his wife. You know, it's a variation of the houses that we saw before. Those houses had been used also as prototypes in the army, and you will see them. So he didn't live very differently from what he was advocating to other people. You know, in other words, he didn't live with his wife in a castle and promoted for other people that, you know, futuristic cell, or how to call it. But again, I'm seduced by these drawings, because I used to do exactly this and I almost feel tempted now to show you some of my works done in this way, where the words and the drawing were both searching in a way through their distinct means for the same thing. I don't know if Fuller did quite that, but I like the way he, you know, the drawing becomes part of the graphics. And I think it's interesting, this. Yes. But very detailed. I mean, this was a sensitive engineer. It was an engineer with aesthetical aspirations, obviously. Interesting drawings. And we don't do this any longer. But this drawing actually is pleasant to look at although it is you would say a working drawing, but you can put it on the wall. It's sensitive and it's, I would say it's nice. Okay, and now we are inside the house. I don't know about the chair. I don't think that's a Buckminster Fuller, but it's interesting, you know. Yes, it seems deserted. It seems something is wrong here, but I like the roof, which becomes a wall, you know, and it has character, you know. It's some kind of a modernistic Gothic structure in a way. And here they are, the engineer with his wife. You know, once they furnished the space, you know, it looks human. Okay, now I don't know what these people are doing here. I did read that the house, the very house where they lived, had to be refurbished and repaired and all the rest. Here is the gentleman with a, you know, he has a vest. He has British aspirations in a way. Okay, interesting man. Bucky, unfortunately, he proposed that cupola over Manhattan, which I have troubles to accept, but will arrive there. You see, the resurrection of Richard was his first name actually, Richard Buckminster Fuller, and Anne Hewlett Fuller's dome home in Carbondale, Illinois. Yeah, there is a book about it, of course. What a difference now between the house on the right and the house where they lived. And yes, it's a modest house. It's not a large house. Now here are the American soldiers with Dimaction's pavilions all around them. You know, I don't know. Would such houses make better soldiers, or maybe we don't need better soldiers? Period. We don't need soldiers actually. But what can we do? We human beings like to kill each other, so I guess we need soldiers. But I imagine such designed and futuristic, you know, houses for the soldiers would make them a little bit idealistic themselves. But maybe that's not a good thing to have idealistic soldiers. I don't know. Now the Wichita House, which is also Dimaxion House, I pronounce well, from 1946, so immediately after the war. He was considered by the New York Times the mad scientist, the mad inventor, you know. But the mad inventor also created a very big exhibition place at the Montreal exhibition, international exhibition for the United States, and did other interesting things. You'll see two projects by him. Well, only one I found, the tower in for Tokyo, and he didn't win. But look at the house and look at the car. You know, I like the car, but the car is not really futuristic seen from today. But the house is still out of this world. It's still, you know, more appropriate perhaps for Mars. Unless you are homeless and Kanye West builds one for you, kind of similar, but small. Anyway, now he designed the car that I mentioned, and you'll see the proud Sir Norman Foster. I actually like this about Sir Norman Foster, that he took time, and of course he invested to recreate the car done by Buckminster Fuller. Out of love for Buckminster Fuller, apparently Sir Norman Foster was influenced by Buckminster Fuller. Maybe he even knew him. I don't know, but yeah, it was a sign of affection from Norman Foster. This is the car, not bad at all. It's much more futuristic than what is being built even today. And you see here, Bucky Fuller, the grandfather of green. So I imagine it's not just about the color of the car, but because I know that Fuller had sustainable interests or ecological interests. So maybe this car didn't consume a lot of gas, or I don't know. But I don't think it's without a reason that he's called the grandfather of green. Because, as I said, his main interest was to create more with less. So in that sense, he probably is very relevant for us today. That is, if we learn more from him than I just did. This is the car, the Maxion car, and you'll see other versions in front of the Crystal House. This idealism of North America, which at times is naive in a way, but any idealism is naive, and at times could even be like the love letters that Fernando Pessoa mentions, ridiculous. But Fernando Pessoa beautifully said that, the one who doesn't write love letters is ridiculous, not the one who does, who writes them. And yes, love letters are ridiculous. And in a way, also dreams are a little bit, could be a little bit ridiculous. But what would we do without these dreamers, really? Look at this car. It's funny, it's burlesque, it's a version of that house, of that car. Very interesting. Maybe the world would be a better place to live in if we had the courage to, I actually think his designs are more human than the last one designed by Elon Musk. Although he is a dreamer himself, kind of. Anyway, I don't know. I personally have affection for dreamers who are not great entrepreneurs. I'm a little bit suspicious of the dreamers who are commercially, unbelievably so-called successful. Or maybe that's because I cannot be like that. But anyway, this is the car. It's funny, it's burlesque, it's comical, it's ridiculous, it's splendid, it's idealistic, it's you name it. And I think it has 3 wheels, doesn't it? Maybe you know, but Frank Lloyd Wright also envisioned those 10 years, hard years, when America wouldn't give him commissions because he ran over the ocean with someone's wife. So he was punished by the Puritanistic America. So he dedicated himself to the intense study of Broadacre City. And his drawings for Broadacre City are filled with cars with 3 wheels, very futuristic, as opposed to the cars drawn by Le Corbusier, which were always, from another time. Le Corbusier was very concerned, as you know, by the aesthetics of modernity, even of the future, but not the aesthetics of the cars. He never designed futuristic cars, but Frank Lloyd Wright did, and so did, as you can see, Buckminster Fuller. And this is, I think it was, it might be that this is in England, and you'll see, yes, Sir Norman Foster. I like the way he is dressed here. I saw him in some other times when he was not dressed as well as he could. But I really like the fact that this man paid homage to Buckminster Fuller by rebuilding his car, because I imagine the one that was built or the ones that were built got damaged in time. I don't know. This was created almost from tabula rasa. I don't know. And I like this expression, I mean, he's not one of my favorite architects, really, but it doesn't seem arrogant, really. I still see a child in Sir Norman Foster, and that child, I think, communicated over time with a child in Buckminster Fuller. And this is a nice, I would say, friendship of one's inner child with another one's inner child. Anyway, so not limiting himself to any one discipline, Fuller took on cartography with this invention, credited as the first 2-dimensional map of the entire Earth's surface that shows it without distortion. To create the piece, Fuller projected the world map onto the surface of a three-dimensional icosahedron, which was then unfolded and laid flat. And you see the map of the world here without distortion. He was obviously a dreaming child. I mean, nobody asked him to do this, but he felt like doing it. And he did other things. We'll see them now, one by one. And then tensegrity structures. He invented this word, tensegrity. I regret so much that I am not more rigorous and not an engineer. That's why I would have liked to have here a good engineer to explain to us what it is. But there is a text. So from 1949, he promoted these structures. And you see a picture of him here, like a child, you know, he's happy. This man is happy that he did these tensegrity structures. And now we'll read about it. Here you see again the drawing. I really like his drawings. You know, they are precise, they are rigorous, but also somehow graphically very pleasant. So through his extensive research, inventions, and structural experiments, Buckminster Fuller created the term tensegrity to describe self-tensioning structures composed of rigid structures and cables, with forces of traction and compression which form an integrated whole. In other words, tensegrity is the property demonstrated by a system that employs cables, traction, and rigidity of other elements, usually steel, wood, or bamboo, capable of acting under the intrinsic stresses, traction and compression, together and simultaneously giving greater resistance and formal stability. It creates an interconnected structure that works biologically like muscles and bones, where one element strengthens the other. For Georgia Victor, I don't know who that person is, it is used today to explain the organization of the elements that make up living beings according to the characteristics of their geometry. This spatial organization forms a continuous field of tensions and compressions in constant equilibrium in a game of tensions with the force of gravity. And here we see a picture of this structure. We'll see a few more. In general, the system works by joining opposing forces, and according to Fuller, is the structural basis of nature, capable of, with a minimum of elements, forming a strong structure. American contemporary sculptor Kenneth Snelson, a former student of Buckminster Fuller's, played an essential role in the development of the structural system, working with pieces composed of rigid and flexible components. And we see here another picture. And yes, you can tell there is a degree of freedom here, which results, I think, from the presence of the flexible elements. So there are rigid elements and flexible elements. Snelson's work that best embodies the system is the Needle Tower, a sculpture created in 1968 measuring 18 meters high, 18 wide, and 5.42 meters long, that allow Fuller to theoretically develop the idea from tensile integrity analysis. The geodesic dome designed by the architect already hinted towards the notion of the tensile structures in 1988, despite the difficulties met in the assembly process of the prototype, which stood only for a few minutes. So this is the tower that is described here, 18 meters high, remarkable. And so this was done not by Fuller, but by his student, that sculptor. And rigid bars act on compression forces and are arranged in an isolated, non-touching manner, complementing the steel cables that receive tensile forces. The concept was expanded, incorporating structures that may not be self-balanced, but which contemplate the principle formed by tension cables and compressed bars isolated from each other, like in Fuller's geodesics. And we arrive at his geodesic structures, which made him even more famous. But this is interesting too, because you have order and disorder. You have rigidity and you have flexibility. And every time, I think, when you try to combine opposites to create a conjunction between opposites, something miraculous happens. And this is why the alchemist always search for uniting the opposites. Okay, this is a website you can read more. There was a more ample article about these tensegrity structures, what they are and what they can or could be. All right, and now we arrive at the geodesic dome from 1953. Unfortunately, I don't even know, I couldn't find one exactly from 1953. I think it's one from 1960. But you are familiar with the geodesic dome. And maybe this one is a little bit less surprising because it's a, it's a more regular, form at least. Although the structure is done with a minimum of means, and this was his attempt all along to create more with less. Now we see the project for a tower, the Tokyo Tower in 1958, which was not selected. So as opposed to Elon Musk, he couldn't transform into gold everything he touched. But it's an interesting subject, an interesting project, unfortunately unbearably big and tall. You can see the Eiffel Tower, right? And you can see the tower by Buckminster Fuller. No, when you look at it, you would say, well, he wasn't a very modest man. So, it was supposed to be quite big. And I mean, poor Eiffel Tower, it looks ridiculous near the tower, proposed by Buckminster Fuller. But this is how Americans are sometimes, they aspire towards the infinite, and then they propose 1 mile tall towers like Frank Lloyd Wright. But they're not just Americans. Calatrava, as you know, also did for the Arab world something not much less, much more modest. Anyway, yeah, this was the project that was rejected by the Japanese, and maybe maybe you understand why. I mean, I imagine when the Japanese just looked at the Eiffel Tower, they, I guess they were a little bit reluctant to accept his idea. But it looks otherwise balanced, and it's clean. It's a clean structure. It looks convincing. The stadium, you see where the stadium is just like almost like a step of a stair, and there is a stadium. Anyway, here you see it better.
So they
8,000 feet, pardon?
So they rejected this design and copied the Eiffel Tower and painted it red and white then.
Yeah. So 8,000 feet, God. What's that? Feet? No. I'm confused about the dimensions, but anyway, it's enough that we see the Eiffel Tower there to understand that we are dealing with something immense here. Yeah. Well, he was not the most modest man in the world, despite the fact that he wanted to do more with less. And it does connect with what he said, to have more and more. Okay. All right, now I was hoping to find a picture with the Tokyo Olympic Stadium, which he designed, but it was not selected. The one that was selected and built was a brilliant one by Kenzo Tange. And what a beautiful work did Kenzo Tange there, as opposed to Kengo Kuma. I know it's the second time I mentioned Kengo Kuma's name today, and I apologize in a way, but I think he did a terrible job with the stadium Tokyo built this year for the Olympics, which are postponed. And maybe Zaha Hadid was right to sue him. I don't know. It doesn't. His stadium doesn't look similar to Zaha Hadid, but Zaha Hadid architects and she herself claimed that he copied certain things, and she had all the reasons to be outraged because she won the competition, and her stadium was much more interesting than what Kengo Kuma did. So I really don't understand the Japanese. I have the highest respect for Japan. I never traveled there, but I admire Japanese culture, Japanese art. I admire them, but they were unjust towards Zaha Hadid. And I mean, she won the competition. Why didn't they build what she proposed? Because it would have been much, much better than what Kengo Kuma pathetically did. Okay, so this is something else from 1968, the watercraft rowing needles. He loved needles. Fuller considered that actually the needle is the most perfect shape for his idea to create more with less. So in Fuller's interpretation of the rowing boat sees the vessel paired back to the two streamlined and lightweight hulls known as needles. The design positions the oarsmen. I know nothing about these things, but anyway, I'll continue to read. In an elevated seat which can be accessed without any aid. Sir Norman Foster said that Fuller considered the needles his most refined design, the purest expression of doing more with less, in a recent interview with Vanity Fair. Anyway, this is another drawing, I imagine, by Buckminster Fuller with a background of a different nature. I mean, not really different nature, but anyway, it's a composite image, I imagine. And then we arrive at the Fly's Eye Dome, for Fuller's final prototype for low-cost portable housing of the future. He aimed to reduce the structural weight of the dwelling. The result comprises transparent bubble windows across a partial sphere made from fiberglass. These bulging glass windows, which resemble the eyes of a fly, could be swapped for solar panels and rainwater collection systems, as part of the architect's continued ambition for an autonomous dwelling machine. And they built one actually, I incorporated an image in the invitational text today. They built one recently somewhere in Florida, maybe in Miami or in Texas. Anyway, yeah, he was an engineer, but an engineer with interests beyond perhaps engineering. So now something which again has to do with the offshore. I mean, why am I saying again? With offshore drilling, the submersible is designed to be partially submerged underwater to protect apparatus known as an oil derrick from damage caused by stormy water. It doesn't really look like a sustainabilist to me, if there is such a word. I don't even know if I should continue to read, because some of these words I don't even know, and I probably pronounce them terribly. Anyway, there is a story here with a Fuller's investor died. This proposal never made it off the drawing board. And yeah, it's some kind of complex structure having to do with drilling, bringing more oil to the insatiable human beings. And then the Vector Equilibrium from 1980 is a stainless steel wire structure comprising straps arranged in tetrahedron patterns that are connected by hinges so that it shifts about when touched. It is one of the most fascinating kinetic sculptures in the exhibition. Eduard Sella, who curated the upcoming Los Angeles exhibition. Specifically, the sculpture using an interconnected, twisting, contracting, inside-outing I like this inside outing, dynamic action that allows for the fixed structural system to achieve the closest packed unit radius. Yeah. Um, okay, so we arrive at his last work that I show in this presentation, the celebrated and highly publicized Montreal Biosphere from 1967, which was actually the pavilion of the United States, and you probably saw it published. I personally am not so impressed by these huge, spheres, almost spheres, but probably in terms of engineering, they are astonishing. And unfortunately, this one exploded in fire. I mean, you'll see a picture. I don't know how it happened, but there was a fire that ruined it, destroyed it. Maybe in terms of, I mean, not maybe, its dimensions and the thinness of the structural elements is almost embroidered the structure. So it was an interesting invention at the time, and he was very fond of these domes, of this. He would have liked, I think, to cover the whole world with it. And he made a proposal for Manhattan, and you'll see it. It will be the last thing that I will show. That tree looks so photogenic somehow, you know, with red leaves. And anyway, yeah. So this was in 1967, so 53 years ago in Montreal. And it burned. I don't know what happened to it. There is a tree also with red leaves inside. These are probably special trees brought for the occasion from somewhere else. I see all the other trees have green leaves. This is a time cover, and you can see the car that we looked at, and geodesic dome, and some kind of tower, and planes and the moon. And this is the dreaming engineer looking through his eyeglasses towards us. A section through this US pavilion. And here it is. I don't know what happened. I don't know how it burned in this way, but it did. And now we arrive at the last thing, which is a proposal in 1960 of Buckminster Fuller to put a giant geodesic dome over Midtown Manhattan. The purpose of the dome was to regulate the weather and reduce air pollution. You would say that something like this would be beneficial today, since we have climate change and a lot of pollution. I'm not very sure about the pollution, how he would control it, because it would still be an enclosed space. But he believed that this is something worthy of being done. For, I don't know, 60, let's see, the dome running from 62nd Street down to 22nd Street. So for 40 streets was a mile high and 1.8 miles across. So almost 3 kilometers. Can you believe it? According to the biographer, its skin would consist of wire reinforced one-way vision, shatterproof glass, mist plated with aluminum to cut sun glare while admitting light. From the outside, it would look like a great glittering hemispheric mirror, while from the inside, its structural elements would be as invisible as the wires of a screened porch. And it would appear as a translucent film through which the sky, clouds, and stars would appear. And this is in plan. I discovered today an essay or a blog, or I don't know what it is, or both, where someone was seriously questioning this kind of, vision, and actually suggested that we need less something like this, and we need more bunkers in the earth, digged in the earth to escape possible nuclear disasters or climate change gone above wild, above certain limits. I don't know. But this is the website that I mentioned, called Under the Dome, and you can read more about this. I personally, if I am to express any thought, I personally wouldn't like very much to live under a dome like this, but who knows? Anyway, uh, we can discuss about this dream of Richard Buckminster Fuller. And with this, I end the presentation on him. Very different from Ungers, no? I have to, I need a pause because I am not sure I can continue immediately with Rotterdam. So maybe we can exchange some thoughts, some feelings, some, impressions, ideas.
Norman likes Bucky. Hope we can hear Norm's talk about it.
Pardon?
Norman
Yes.
Norman knows quite a bit about Bucky. He always lectures me about him.
Yes. He was fascinating, and he knew him, I'm sure. Yes, I read this that he was influenced by Buckminster Fuller. Yeah. So, if no one else wants to say anything, I guess I could try to start the presentation on Rotterdam, which will be more less intimidating in a way because there are no technicalities of the sort that Buckminster Fuller challenged me with. Okay, I'll start with Rotterdam, since I promised we'll also celebrate Erasmus. Of course, I will talk about present day Rotterdam and not Rotterdam in which Erasmus lived almost 500 years ago. But Rotterdam was, Erasmus of Rotterdam was quite an interesting man, and I have something in common with him. I'll tell you what. He said that, when he had a little bit of money, he always bought books, and if some money was left, he would buy food and clothes. In this sense, I used to be, but since with the pandemic, I didn't buy books any longer. But it's a vice of mine. Yeah, I understand him perfectly. I always did that. When I had a little bit of money, I would buy books, and then if something remained, by a miracle, I would buy food, or I don't know, something else. But it's a problem with books. I'm sure some of you also love books. Books are all my life. I sent books from one place to another, and I used airplanes and trains, and they are heavy. And then you have to find shelves, and you have to build them, or you keep them on the floor like I do now. There are towers here with books, which I'm not even opening any longer because I'm all day, doing PowerPoint presentations on the internet. And a book dealer in Chicago told me something, and actually this also derives from from Erasmus. I think Erasmus said something very similar, if not exactly the same. Well, that book dealer that I knew in Chicago told me, Dan, books are like women. You cannot live with them and you cannot live without them. Of course, women would say the same thing. Books are like men. You cannot live with them and you cannot live without them. I don't know. We are doomed. But it's true about books. You just don't know how many times I said to myself, I'll never buy another book again. And then the next day I was at the bookstore, or I don't know. Half of my life I spent in bookstores and in libraries, and the other half, I don't know. What did I do the other half? I don't know. I am doing now PowerPoint presentations. So I'm beginning. From the beginning, of course, because we like order. Rotterdam, the city that was destroyed by the war, and you'll see some pictures. But before, I'll show, maybe he did his diploma with the help of Oswald, Mathias, Ungers. I didn't yet study it carefully. I just wanted to show this specifically to the students, how different a diploma looked like when Rem Koolhaas studied at AA in London. I mean, even the naming, the voluntary prisoners of architecture, Exodus, and it's a speculative work, and of course it's not modest. I mean, look, by comparison, Buckminster Fuller almost seems, timid. Yeah, this is what was not only accepted at that time when Alvin Boyarsky was leading the school, and also when Zaha Hadid was studying there, but was also encouraged, not only accepted. So the students, the university where I give conferences don't have such a degree of freedom, not to say, craziness. But that's why I put this work here, because yes, Rem Koolhaas has his office in Rotterdam, but I wanted especially the students to see this work without analyzing it in depth, but just to look at some pictures from his diploma. If you read what Rem Koolhaas said about how his schooling went, you wouldn't believe your eyes. He described a school which almost had nothing to do with architecture, and it proved to be very successful. If you look on Wikipedia, the alumni of that school, Architectural Association, is unbelievable. Like, perhaps I do not exaggerate if I say that maybe 70%, 80% of the people who move the world of architecture went through that school one time or another. You name them, there's almost miraculous. And when Alvin Boyarsky was the director of that school, the school was very eccentric. They didn't have a curriculum. It was all, I don't know. I mean, look at Rem Koolhaas' diploma work. Where is the house? Where is the architecture? Well, it is and it isn't. Anyway, and yes, it has a certain level of cynicism which he kept alive all along. Anyway, but now we are at the cynicism of war, at the tragedy of war. Look what the war did to Rotterdam. They destroyed, the war destroyed almost all the old center, and miraculously that church was not totally erased. And so the city had to come back to life. And even now, I think you feel that it's very hard to restore the history of a city, its integral unity. It doesn't matter how much time passes, it's hard. Compared to Amsterdam, this is the city that has to be concerned with the future, because the past is almost gone. And that's why maybe Rotterdam is considered the city of the future. In Europe, at least, some people think that Rotterdam is the city of the future. Okay, so again, these tragic pictures. When are we going to renounce war, we human beings? Instead of living in peace and trying to understand that I don't want to sound, sweet, but why are we waging wars, really? Why? When obviously the results are tragic at all levels. And we know it, and yet we cannot abstain from waging wars. It's incredible. It's like some kind of a devil is in us, and we cannot control that devil. Okay, now the Kunsthal in Rotterdam, and here truly I expect some interventions from Florian and Daliana, because you lived in Rotterdam. In fact, I should not be allowed to talk about Rotterdam. I just visited Rotterdam in 2 days, and I prepared this material, but you have much more to say than me about Rotterdam. This building I saw is true. I saw it. I was curious to see it at the time, but I went to Rotterdam many years ago when this building was built. This was, you know, kind of a new building at that time. This was 30 years ago. And yes, it is Rem Koolhaas with a sloping, you know, surface expressed in the facade. He likes diagonals, of course, and I like diagonals too, because the diagonal is a sign of rebelliousness in a way, and I like diagonals. But I like the vertical of the tree as well. Yeah, yes, the columns inside are perpendicular on the diagonal, so thus they are not vertical. And I think Rem Koolhaas does do a good job. You know, I mean, you look at the plans, you look at the sections. It's him. It's a work that has unity, but also has you know, diagonals, as I said. In other words, accidents. He also built in Chicago a building that I saw. So for the, well, also for the students, like a student center, where he also uses sloping slabs. He loves sloping slabs, you know. And so does Bernard Tschumi. And the deconstructivists like to, you know, to flirt with danger, so to speak.
May I add something about
Always.
this? So I mean, I really love this building and really admired it very much. Also like from MVR de Villa VPRO, and what I find always quite fascinating is these sort of laissez-faire attitude towards detailing and sort of, oh, this is a coincidence and this is an accident, but in a way they're very brave about it. They let this accident happen and they build this accident rather than trying to cover up and come up with crazy details how to hide it. If you go a couple of slides back, I think you see it very well there. One more, yeah, this one, stop. No, yeah. So you see the diagonal going through, and then there is this sort of pedestal over the entrance, which is peeking through the ramp in a weird way, and you could not, you know, probably would have been very difficult to solve, but this sort of, yeah, bricolage or tinkering things together is, I think it's just very powerful, because, you know, I would start thinking, how could I hide this thing, you know, or how could I integrate it better, or would I thicken up the ramp? And at the same time, if you see in front of it, if you see all the piping and all the stuff running on the ceiling, so there is this braveness of, you know, just don't care, you know. And, I find this very powerful in this 90s Dutch architecture. It almost looks like this what we call in German the model you work with, rather than the representation model. The model you just cut things together and glue it together to show the concept. So the whole programmatic and the way of making and the process is much more important than the finished product. And I think you see this procedural work of options and trying things out. You see very much it goes through in the build work. It's almost like this model where they also work with all these different textures and colors. I find this very fascinating.
No, thank you, Florian. So again, both you and Daliana, and if anyone else, lived in Rotterdam or has something to say, please do so. Thank you.
Hi, Dan.
Hi.
Yeah, this is Daliana speaking. So, I was working for OMA, and I remember one of the things they wanted to do is free section in reaction to Corbusian free plan. So, I think the Kunsthal building reflects this thinking of how to make the section sort of free. So there are a lot of tilted floors and ramps, and they try to do it in as many buildings as possible for OMA.
This is a very interesting information, Daliana. Thank you. So you say that, as opposed to Le Corbusier, who worked with a free plan, so-called free plan, you wanted to do at OMA free sections.
Yes, I think they try to do that for every building possible, unless it is not possible, then yeah, that's correct, I think.
Yeah, I see that. Yes, and I didn't think of it in comparison with Le Corbusier, but yes, it's a very, very, very interesting information that you told us about. And I remember I saw I attended a conference by Massimiliano Fuchsas many years ago at Columbia, and he said that he always starts a building with the sections, not with a plan, which is unusual because I was trained, and usually architects start with a plan. But he said no, I start with a section, not with a plan. Now, this is how do you pronounce in Dutch the name of this firm?
MVRDV, but nobody's. But everybody says MVRDV, so everybody uses it.
Not everybody. I say it differently. That's why I asked, because I'm always a little bit.
Always MVRDV in English. Winnie calls his office MVRDV. I never heard him talking MVRDV, no.
So MVRDV. Okay.
Yeah, Maas van der Rijs de Vries.
What did you say?
Winnie Maas, DM.
Yes.
Jacob van der Rijs. And what's her name? Jessica de Vries? No. Yeah.
Natalie de Vries.
Natalie. Yeah, sorry. Oh, man.
Yeah, the partners. Yes.
Yes.
So did you see this building when you lived there, this library?
Yes, we passed by.
Yeah,
but it's not in...
on the outskirts. No, it's another town. Wait a second, I forgot.
It's not in Rotterdam at all, but okay.
It's not in Rotterdam, this one?
No, but I mean, Rotterdam, in Netherlands is small and everything is just one big city there.
so everything is in Rotterdam. Okay. No, because I specifically for buildings in Rotterdam, and this popped up. But anyway, even if it's outside of Rotterdam, is still in Rotterdam. The way you put it.
It's Spijkenisse, so it's the end of Rotterdam or something. It's still, I think, Rotterdam and omgeving, Rotterdam and surrounding.
Yes. Now,
Rotterdamish.
It's described as, kind of a mountain of books. But anyway, at that time, I guess there wasn't so much concern with, saving energy and so on. With so much glass, you need to You need a lot of air conditioning there. But plus the books don't like natural light, don't like sunlight, but I guess that can be solved with a certain kind of glass. Anyway, I will show several works by them because I like their works, and some of them are incredible. I'm very happy that they exist and that Rotterdam exists. This is a rendering. About this project, I'm not so convinced, but it's kind of an interesting idea to have a mountain of books inside a so-called traditional, you know, this is the archetypal image of a house.
I think it's a little bit this idea of the ziggurat, because when you know the ziggurat, the sort of pyramid inside. With the glass around, because when the old, or not the old, but I think it was by Buckminster, the TU Delft building, the tower, it burned down. And then the TU Delft, which is very close to Rotterdam, like 15 minutes away, had to relocate. They went into an old, sort of classicistic brick building, which is on the campus. And some of these wings and courtyards that turned into one is a model workshop, and the other one, they have this big orange, also stepping up auditory, which is also housing the Y Factory, which is the program of Minimas at TU Delft inside. And I think it comes a little bit sort of, was one of these themes by MVRDV to have this ziggurat, Tower of Babel, stepping, hanging gardens sort of structures inside glass elements.
But why did they do this inside a house that is, I mean, the carcass is, you know, expressing the archetypal, you know, house, you know, the domestic house. So this I do not quite understand why they cover the ziggurat with this thing.
I don't know either. I can only suspect, or either it's a sort of a nod towards a certain historical elements of Spijkenisse or the Dutch building typology. But in Spijkenisse, there's also a very modern building, or very futuristic looking building by UN Studio, which I don't think there would be any reason for that to do so. Or it's simply ironical, or, you know, playful.
or Florian, or is a northern building now.
Yeah, like that could be.
Okay, so, but again, you know, they are iconoclasts, you know. I mean, the tension between the ziggurat within and the kind of a, you know, domestic house, although it is big outside, is interesting. There is tension, yes. They like tension, they like conflict, they like a certain joyous drama, if we can say so. Book Mountain. Now we arrive, and we'll come back to this. Because I like diagonals, I like both diagonals. You know, the diagonal of the central station, the railway station, and the diagonal built by them of those stairs. I really admire this. You know, that the Dutch society is not you know, inhibited to avoid something like this. You know, that's an utilitarian stair, but because of its scale and its democratic appeal is very, I think, is very contemporary in the good sense of the word. And the two diagonals together create something dynamic, and not with very, you know, not very expensive or ceremonial means. It's I like this, you know. I like the fact that you know, the aesthetics of almost arte povera, I'm referring to the stair, become you know, socially very powerful and you know, efficient, actually, in what the architects wanted to say. It's remarkable. I actually don't think that too many cities, I don't think Paris would have ever accepted something like this. No,
May I say something about
please.
it? So the installation of these stairs, it was a temporary installation. It was like a couple of years ago, shortly before we left for Indonesia. And it goes up to the Groothandelsgebouw. This is this big trades building. It's a post-World War building by, I think, Maaskant. So it's also a very important post-war building next to the central station. And yeah, so people were very impressed because they could walk up on the outside of a building on this big stair. So that never ever happened anywhere. So it was very, very spectacular, because you can then indeed also look on top of the roof of the newly built station. And the station was built by a consortium of several architects or designed, and it has the funny nickname of Kapsalon. And Kapsalon means actually hairdresser, but it's actually like shawarma and kebab, sort of food which you eat when you're younger, and you go out and have your beers and drinks at the bar, and then in the night you eat a kapsalon, which is basically French fries with all sort of sauces on top of it. So they call it like this aluminium tray you get in for your fast food. So that's the local nickname for the station, because it's a little bit aluminium color and a little bit wobbly, so it's not sort of super smooth color texture of the facade.
Thank you. So this stair, did I understand correctly, was built like temporarily?
Yes, it's an installation. On? It's an installation from MVRDV.
No, but
it was on.
It's still on?
No. It's removed completely. It was only a couple of weeks.
Yeah, this saddens me. This saddens me. I like its ephemerality, but I would have liked it to be permanent. Anyway, I really like this stair, and I think the city also liked it, and the people love to climb those stairs. And I think even the train station loved it because it had a diagonal in the opposite direction. But anyway, Rotterdam, the city of the future, as it is described. So landmark buildings and experimental construction are transforming the Netherlands' second city into a world-class destination for architectural innovation, outstripping other European centers and turning Amsterdam into the city of the past. Anyway, the last 2 years, Rotterdam's, when this was written, cityscape has seen the arrival of several major buildings, from MVRDV's colossal market hall, which I love, to Oma's towering, I love the inside, I mean, to Oma's towering the Rotterdam Hotel and Office Block, and the new railway station, as you said, the consortium where you have 3 firms working together. But it has also established itself as a hub for new building technologies, home to studios experimenting with floating architecture, robotic construction, wind power, lighting, innovation, and 3D printing. All this despite having been one of the worst bombed cities during the Second World War, when most of the city center was reduced to rubble. So floating farm in Rotterdam is now home to 32 cows. Can you believe it? In the city of the future, we actually have 32 cows enjoying, you know,
we were working on this project.
Really? Please tell us. Do you know the names of the cows? Were you introduced to the cows?
No, we worked together with a developer, Belladon. His name is Peter van Wingingerden, and yeah, we had at a certain moment we had a little bit of a fallout, and then we said we don't want to work with you anymore.
So, but this was done by UN?
No. This was done by Shaw. I mean, the first studies.
Okay.
By our company.
Yes.
So it's but in a way it's a very interesting system, because the system itself is originally for on the land, not in the water. So, and the idea is you have this permeable floor where the cows are feeding, and if they're peeing, then the urine flows down, is collected down there. the poop is collected by robots, and then you use all this biomaterial and make biogas from it. And then you can also use that again to grow the food. So the system itself was already there, done by a certain company. And the novelty, of course, is then putting that on a floating pontoon and putting that into the river or in the Maas, and yeah, make it floating.
Interesting, very interesting. I mean, what a chance we have to that you are here and you can tell us things that you know. I mean, with first knowledge. I mean, you even worked on this project. I mean, it's unbelievable. This happened when I made a presentation. I forgot about New York, and Bruce was there. And at one moment, I showed a pavilion, kind of a pavilion designed by Hernan Diaz Alonso for PS1. And Bruce popped up, said, "I did the engineering for that building." I mean, it's incredible. I think it's incredible that we meet almost accidentally, and now I make a. Do you think when I created this PowerPoint presentation, it ever crossed my mind that someone who worked on this project, even on an initial phase, would be?
Yeah, we made a couple of concepts, floating concepts. One is a floating hotel, and the other one was a floating milk factory.
So when are you going to show us those projects?
I can put them into they're on our homepage. I mean, there were early concept stages, but we had fun working on them.
So you want to show them now, or?
I don't know, you just open the homepage and click the link and then you can see it.
So do you want me to?
No, as you want, really.
I mean,
totally
we can do it another time. It's really up to you.
Yeah, sure. No, it's totally fine. Do as you like.
Well, no, you have to decide.
No, then we do it another time.
Okay.
Just.
All right, but I love these pictures, with the cows, and this reminds me. I don't know if you know there is. I don't know if he's still alive. An Italian architect and designer, Andrea Branzi. Andrea Branzi, who became kind of, scandalous figure because he promoted some kind of anti-architecture, and if you check his name, Andrea Branzi, B-R-A-N-Z-I, you will see what he was and is about. I met him at Archilab conference in Orleans near Paris, and I even invited him once to an exhibition called Architectural Intoxications, and he said, I will contribute, but to an architectural disintoxication. So anyway, he has such images with cows and laptops in between them, and technology, but also some kind of a return to earth and to urban agriculture and so on. Anyway, but again, I see the non-conformism also combined with the pragmatism of the Dutch, which I admire so much. I like that ephemeral stair, that installation. Here also, again, Paris will never do something like this because they are too pompous. I admire the French culture, but they will never think of bringing the cows in the proximity of their city, I mean, just like that, I mean, what would you do with the cows and the l'Arc de Triomphe?
If I may add, it comes from a certain viewpoint of thinking, because the Netherlands is the most dense part, one of the most densest parts in Europe, right? So if you go back also to this idea of stacking landscape, of stacking factory or farming, it goes back maybe also to the Expo Pavilion in 2000 in Hanover by MVRDV, which by the way gets now refurbished with housing around, so it's not that remnant anymore. But if you remember this pavilion, they were stacking all these landscape elements and these different things atop each other. also MVRDV had this proposal of, I think, pig city, where they would stack pig farms vertically at the North Sea coast. So it goes a little bit into this idea of that land is very valuable. So how can you make the most out of it? And so one of these approaches was to compacting it even more and stacking it. And so the idea here with this farm and is also, you know, bringing agricultural production back into the city, because the sustainability idea behind this, you would have less transportation in terms of distance and less energy usage for transportation. At the same time, it also would sort of have an educational benefit for the city itself, that, you know, you're not so detached from the food. I mean, if you go to the supermarket, you buy your cutlet or your steak, and you know, it is as it is packaged, but you have no connection to the food at all. And sort of there's an educational element and a sort of land use element to it. And of course, the Rotterdam, the harbor is not that important anymore as it used to be. So basically, it's the consideration of all this harbor surface, this water surface, as unused real estate in a way.
Thank you. So why isn't the harbor so important any longer?
Because it shifted. I mean, the city inside city of Rotterdam has shifted more and more to the outside. I mean, what you see here in the background, this is of course a functioning harbor, but it is not so central anymore as it used to be. So it became more like our office and housing what used to be a more city centralized harbor, distributing goods all over Europe and from the North Sea. So it's also all shifted a little bit more towards the North Sea now.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so they have a nice home that is 32 cows here. And, you know, here you have the drawings of their home. And, you know, everything seems to be okay. You know, the cows, I think they like the new surroundings. Now, this is a building by OMA, much municipal office block from the 50s with a pixelated steel and glass structure to create Rotterdam's new Timmerhuis. I don't know if I pronounced well. I ask for forgiveness. So that's the building by OMA. You know, I think it's well done. And we'll see other things by OMA. Yeah, I imagine their office is still there now in Rotterdam.
Yes, that's the main office of OMA.
Yes.
In of Rotterdam. And yeah, there are a couple of offices worldwide as well. But the Rotterdam office, I find, is always the most maybe experimental. And I would say the other branches, they're serving different purposes. Like, if I may say, OMA Hong Kong is more about getting the money into the whole OMA. And OMA Rotterdam is about spending the money, if I may say.
Daliana, would it be okay with you if you tell us in a few words how it was to work for OMA? You worked for some time there. Maybe you can tell us a few impressions informally.
I mean, I was there for just a year, but I almost worked 3 shifts every day.
Like everybody else, probably.
That's right, actually. That's the architecture industry, the reality anyway. I was living really close to the office to reduce commuting time. So I could have a nice shower and wash my clothes and come back to the office again. I was working for this, mostly for the Rothschild headquarters in London, in a team of many architects. And Rem was especially concerned about this building. So he would write us faxes, came to the office and talked about this project. We changed everything constantly. And interesting was that in that specific project, of Rothschild headquarters in London was that was OMA's first building in London. And so Remo is very concerned because he does care for the city of London. I think his final thesis was also about the city of London, if I'm not mistaken. And so the competition team sort of tried to do this free, a very nice design with a sort of free section with tilted floors and so on, and lying about the efficiency of having a very good office efficiency of 80%. And then they won the project. And then I came, as many other architects, to continue this project, which OMA had won. And we had trouble every day because we could not get that efficiency that they claimed in the beginning. And we had to let go the kind of interesting section that we had in the beginning of the competition. I mean, we as OMA. And so we had to work hard, really a lot. And now all the floors are flat. Basically, they're like a normal office building. And it's OMA's first very contextual building, because there is a small chapel in a small St. Swithin's Lane in the central of London. Well, we probably could. I could share a link how the building looks like, but we worked so much for that small building. So I find OMA is like an intersection between, I find that the way of OMA is a very Dutch office. So the Dutch office always has the clarity of the story. That's number one very important thing for OMA and MVRDV. They're both alike, I would say. That what is the story of the building has to be able to be explained in one sentence. If it's longer, then it's not a good building. Then it's not a powerful building. So OMA and MVRDV always want to make sure that the story is told as a single liner, a one-liner story. And then OMA has this Japanese approach of trying to do so many models and so many experimentation until a certain newness has evolved. So that's, yeah, I mean, I appreciate that kind of, let's say, method, but it's also very tiring for the staff and for everybody.
And for me.
And for you, yes, because we started our, well, maybe you can tell more about that. Yeah, so it's a very interesting experience there, and it was like working for a Dutch architecture office. You can expect a non-hierarchical, you call it, positioning. Like everybody can say anything. You can say to the partner that the idea is not good, and if you come up with a better idea, for example. So this is really nice, and so. It's not like you always have to listen to what the project leader has to say. But yes, I mean, I started as a junior architect. I had to listen to what are the requests, what to do for that day and that night. But I could also, in my own time, propose something else, what I had in mind. And I would have the time to present that to Rem or to Ellen, the partner in charge, at that moment. Well, maybe basically that's all. And I was working for the Rotterdam building for 2 nights because I had to Photoshop a floor in or a floor out. I cannot remember anymore. But anyway, I had a short experience at OMA and a long relationship with MVRDV actually, with Winimas. But let me stop now because I think you should go on with the presentation. Thank you very much.
No, this was beautiful, Daliana. Thank you. I mean, these kind of interventions are priceless, really. And I only regret that there are no more students from here present. But I'm recording it, and who knows, maybe. But yes, I feel very fortunate that you are here, and what you said I think is very valuable, and in fact more valuable than what I say, because I'm really in relation to Rotterdam at least less than a beginner. Anyway, the other buildings by him, which you know, by them, which you know. By the way, does Rem Koolhaas draw? I mean, did he bring sketches and diagrams and so on, done by him?
Yes, he did when I was there. Yes. So I mean, he would pick several projects that he really cared about, and he would sketch in the plane because he's always no, he's sometimes at the office and have meetings, but when he's out there, he will always fax us through his many hotels, and we would get the fax at the office at whatever time it would be, 2 a.m., 5 a.m., or 3 p.m., depends on when he would fax it. He sometimes sketch it, he sometimes put diagrams, and he would write in the fax what he feel about the project and what he thinks about the project. So it's very educational also for the staff to read his faxes. And then I heard from a colleague after I was out that then there was the iPad time. So he started to use the iPad, and a colleague told me that he would be sketching on the iPad with his fat fingers. My colleague told me, and I don't know about now. Maybe he is communicating differently, or maybe he's not very involved in many projects anymore. But when I was there, he was selective about which project he would be involved in. I think this one he would be involved in because he really cares so much that the Rotterdam would be built. And I remember an inside information how the politics of this project, how the Rotterdam was built. I mean, REM was threatening the city of Rotterdam that they would move their office to London if this project would not have been built. And I think he convinced the city of Rotterdam to rent the offices there so that this project would be feasible to build. Yeah, maybe I stop here.
Thank you. Thank you.
It is a very nice building. I mean, we have been inside because we have some colleagues, friends working there. It's very interesting, a little bit cold. And also as a side note, the building on the left side of it, which is actually a very huge building with a diagonal column in front, is from Renzo Piano. With a toothpick sticking out left of it.
Right. This is, I don't know. This has nothing to do with, forgive me, I forgot, I didn't review this presentation. I did it for a presentation 1 or 2 years ago. And I don't know exactly why I included this. This is in Turkey, has nothing to do with Rotterdam. But searching for materials about Rotterdam, I came across this, and I just couldn't believe my eyes. And because I like accidents, you know, that I thought, well, let's compare the city of the future with what Turkey built here. You know, is actually unbelievable. I mean, this was done, not too long ago, and how could this be? You know, it's the same world, you know, the same time, but anyway. Now, of course, I will not attempt to read correctly the name of that person. Proposes a huge circular wind turbine that doubles as an apartment block and hotel on Rotterdam's waterfront. So I read that this person is specialized in this kind of thing, and even built. And he's not the only one. What I wanted to show with this is that they work in various ways, trying to address pressing issues in today's life, and you will see a little bit further something else. So we have now the Studio Rep completes first robotically fabricated building in the Netherlands. But this was probably a few years ago. You know, it's very possible now they arrived at more developed and advanced and sophisticated ways to robotically produce at least parts of buildings. Yeah, this presentation I made for the students here, and I wanted to show them that Rotterdam is exploring many ways of doing architecture, and is welcoming experiments and high technology, and they are very open-minded about this. Yes, it is a powerful city. I don't know. Is it really the second city in the Netherlands as it was described at the beginning? I mean, Is Amsterdam considered the first city and Rotterdam the second? I'm asking. But anyway, we move forward with this presentation because there are still things to show. Koop Himmelblau's founder Wolf Prix recently told the Dizin that combining robotic fabrication with 3D printing offers amazing opportunities for architecture, while partner Biggs office, the architecture industry is at the start of a maker revolution. Now maybe the pandemic and climate change and other things modify some of these things. Now we arrive at this highly publicized market, which I like very much. I don't know if I'll come back to it because I have some things to say about it. This was just, you know, a small aperitif. Then this is the RDM is an innovation center, the former shipyard of Rotterdam dry dock company. I don't know what I wanted to show with this. I guess they manufacture some kind of house inside the factory. Rotterdam is the city with the most courage and curiosity to explore the new. This is what I read on the web. Then this person has installed the largest smoke vacuum cleaner in the world in Rotterdam to help improve the city's air quality. Interesting, you know, it's like a vacuum cleaner for pollution. And then, yes, there are many websites that address, you know, the qualities and the experiments of Rotterdam. Now, the Rotterdam Central Station that was built by and conceived by these three firms, I think, Daliana, you work for West 8th, no? 8th.
Yeah, that's correct. I work for West 8. We call it West 8.
West 8, yes.
At that moment, I was not involved at the Rotterdam Central Station, so I did not know what to exactly do there. But what I know is that Rotterdam Central Station used to be really dark and a bit scary. Wasn't it, Rotterdam? Florian, do you remember that we could, as students at the Berlage, buy stolen bikes for €10 there every night? There would be someone, junkies, I would say, or we call them junkies, would sell bikes for €10, and we could come any night and we'll be able to buy that bike. So all the students, because we had no money, we went to Rotterdam Central Station, at least until 2004. And when they started renovating it, you know, it became, nobody could buy it anymore there. It became...
I don't, yeah, I mean, it was unsafe, but you must, I mean, what you're skipping a little bit in the presentation, Dan, is of course all the post-war architecture of Rotterdam, because I mean, yeah, it was bombed, and then they had to rebuild Rotterdam into a modern city, and you cannot discuss Rotterdam without this post-war architecture. And this is exactly the problem of the central station, because it was a modernist or a post-war modern building before they tore it down and built the new one, with all its problems. But you could also make a different approach and say, like, okay, this is what was the architect? Siebold van Ravenstein, Dutch architect that's designed many train stations. Yeah, so he was an important Dutch architect. So they just tore this building away and built a triangular silver aluminium tray there. So this is another way of seeing that. So this is at least my opinion, that you should not maybe kill your heritage, even if it's only 50 years old.
Right. Well, yeah. I don't know enough about the history of Rotterdam. I only know that it was destroyed during the war, and you know.
I mean, it was a nice modernist building. It used to be. I can send you a link. It's not ugly. It was maybe practical, but it had some interesting facade.
Yes. So we move forward. You see the installation with that stair was not yet built, or the picture. No, I imagine the picture was taken before the stair was built. And I think it has a certain expression. Is because of the diagonal and the triangle, and it's a train station. It's like the new Stazione Termini in Rome, but this is in Rotterdam, and this is more adventurous in terms of external expression. Of course, it was built at a different time than Stazione Termini, and it looks good even from above. I think it's anyway.
Sorry, what is really amazing about the central station Rotterdam is the underground bike parking garage. It's really a lot of it's a well-designed parking garage for bicycles, and since everybody is biking in the Netherlands, and I mean in Rotterdam as well, it's really important to have that storage capacity for bikes.
Right. So now it's not possible any longer to find bicycles with 10 euros there?
Yeah, I think it moved somewhere else, and I didn't.
You don't know the other place, right?
Yes.
Okay. I do have a nice Gazelle bicycle, though, in an attic somewhere in Pennsylvania, but I like Dutch bikes. It's true. And when I live for a short while in Paris, I had a Batavius. I don't know if I pronounce well the name. Anyway, yeah, this culture of biking is, I think, pleasant to contemplate, and I really hope the whole world will follow this path more than they already do. Okay, so yeah, I mean, it is an imperfect presentation. I didn't live in Rotterdam. I did it for maybe about Rotterdam. You need several presentations, and
I was not meant as a critique.
No. It's legitimate what you said, but I simply didn't know and did not know enough about Rotterdam to articulate, a presentation that is aware of these nuances in a way. That architecture that was built after the war, immediately I know almost nothing about, although I will show a project which of an architect that you mentioned, Florian, and maybe you don't like so much this one, those rotated cubes. I'll show it, and it's not too far away from the train station. I'm talking about, yes, I'm talking about the Rotterdam cube houses, where there is even a hostel, I read, so tourists could go there and rent sleeping accommodation in the house in one of these cubes, rotated cubes. What is the name of the architect? Bloom or Boom or?
Blom, Piet Blom.
Piet Blom, yeah, and he built other things, and
yes,
in Rotterdam he has other buildings.
Not that I know of, but there's a big museum, and last time I sent the link. I can send you the link again in Hengelo, and he made one very important project. It's called the Kasbah housing project in Hengelo, I think it is. And I think, yeah, it goes also in this structuralist Aldo van Eyck line of human-centric design development, and also a relatively modular approach, like the orphanage, right, which we saw the last time, that you start to assemble these sort of modules in, like in this case, the cubes together, and build up this structure, and then the spaces in between. So yeah, this is a tourist attraction. If it is really livable, I'm not entirely sure, but it's for sure interesting to go inside. And of course, you have to applaud the effort that they built something like that. because the usual developer would say, no, we don't build it. But yes, Piet Blom is a very interesting architect, but has also other projects which are really worth having a look at.
Yeah, maybe we'll. I don't know when his birthday was, but I want to check this. Maybe we'll dedicate a presentation just to him. And if you want, Florian, you're invited to take over.
Okay.
I would gladly assess myself because I like to know what I do not know, and I only know these things, but I'm sure he did other interesting things, maybe interesting in a superior sense than these. Okay, so we are still in Rotterdam, and yeah, it is an adventurous city, and I like this. You know, there is hope, I think, in adventurousness, even if, as Florian mentioned, maybe it's not livable in in a conventional sense easily, but anyway. Someone here probably a little bit depressed, maybe out of work. I hope not, but anyway.
There's also an arts academy inside. If you go back one slide. No, front. I think where you had the aerial photo. At the aerial photo where you see it on top. Where's the top view? You just had it.
Well, I think you anticipated. I think it will follow.
Yeah, stop. Yeah, so you see in the background and also in the foreground, I don't know which one it is, but there are some cubes are sort of fused together into this mega pyramids. There is I think Willem van Koning Arts Academy is inside, so I've been there following some critique of some friend of mine. It's also very interesting that it, of course, has this open plaza and this like almost the feeling you walk underneath trees and then it sort of consolidates or the whole structure becomes more dense and then it's subdivided not only in cubes but becomes also some has some public functions inside the whole compound.
I mean, Florian and I and our son, we used to go here to this cube house just to stroll along and walk around and teach our son to walk. You know, I mean, it's really nice in Rotterdam. I really miss living in Rotterdam again. I mean, I mean, these cube houses, they're not only houses, right? They're, as Florian mentioned, an institute. There's also, I think, a flower shop and a hostel. So it's like multifunctional. You're mixed use housing.
And it goes over the street. It's a bridge in a way. It's like the medieval, what you have in Venice, the living bridge, where they build all these houses on top of bridges in a way. So you can stroll through and can use it as a bridge. And on the other side, really not far away, if you would turn around now virtually, you have Blaak. And Blaak is this, where the churches which you have shown, which is, was bombed in the Second World War. And Blaak has now the big market hall. It's like 5 minutes away. We're looking now direction, I think, what is this direction? East, if I'm not mistaken, northeast or something. So in the other direction is the church, which survived. Then there's the market hall. There's a fantastic library there, which we went all the time. It's maybe from the 70s or 80s. It's a bit like a structuralism, Centre Pompidou style. There is then the Berlage Institute used to be there. It was 10 minutes walk. The Blaak place as such is very vibrant because it has like twice a week. It has really an open market, a real market, not like, I mean, I like the market hall, no question, but the market hall is more of a fancy shopping mall type of food market, where you get expensive stuff. But the real market is Blaak, where you can really, where they yell for, want to sell you cheese. And, if you buy now a cabbage, you get 3 of them instead of 2. So what a real market is like. So this is a very vibrant center of Rotterdam where this is located.
Thank you, Florian and Ariana. I almost feel like moving to Rotterdam right now myself. Okay, so now we arrive at the market hall, the market, which I like because I like Rubens. And I think inside, you know, is Rubensian, if I can say so, interior. I don't personally care so much about what is with the apartments, but it is the dynamic duo here. I think is probably very pleasant to shop in that cathedral of vegetables. Um, I admire them for doing this, you know, bringing you know, pictorial bidimensionality, but on a curved surface at this scale, and the chromatic joy. And I think it's beautiful. It's brilliant. And maybe, you know, this is more of a cathedral than many cathedrals, because it's a cathedral destined to be the house of nature. And if Wright was right that, as he's supposed to be with such a name, that you know, the spelling of God is actually nature, then yeah, that's how a cathedral should be, perhaps. As it's the very opposite. It's a market, but it's more than, I mean, who would expect a market to be like this?
I like that it is almost like the inversion of Miralles Market in Barcelona, you know.
Yeah, there you have the you know, the colors and the, yeah, the figurative painting partially towards the outside on the roof. Here is inside. It's beautiful. It really is. I would be, if I lived in Rotterdam, I would be all the time there, you know, contemplating the ceiling. Maybe I would put a blanket on the floor and just lay there and look at the ceiling of the cathedral. Very nice.
It is really nice, and it's also very expensive to make this structure. So actually, the rent price for the booth is quite high, I heard. So there are more like more boutique shops there, but not boutique. It's there is also a Chinese supermarket there. You see the Chinese character. They sell noodles there, and we also used to eat there. There are like a couple of places. Albert Heijn, the supermarket of the Dutch, is down there downstairs. And the apartment cost is a bit high, I heard. It's not a cheap housing. And yeah, of course, the black market is outside, which is like not black, but Block Market is the name of the place, Block, near to Block Station, a small train station. So all, I mean, Rotterdammers would go here to eat, to shop. Yeah, it's a very exciting place to be.
I mean, the market hall is a bit posh, and the market outside is really where the poorer Rotterdammer goes and buys this cheese and vegetable and fish and flowers and stuff like this. Like really, there's a market, and this is a more of a, yeah.
Yeah, this is the museum.
Gentrified market, but nice building.
Yes, I understand. Yes. Okay, so yeah, you can.
I mean, but it's not too posh because I hope there is nobody Dutch here. Every Dutch is stingy, poor or rich. So I mean, you cannot make it too high of a price for a what do you call it, for a sandwich. I mean, if it's more than €250, nobody's buying it. So I mean, 250, 350. So the price is more like reasonable, middle class, but it's not cheap market.
Yes.
This market.
Yes, thank you. Now, this is a theater done by a British architect. Well, this is actually from Australia, I think, Peter Wilson and his wife. I think that even if he was not, he's not a Dutch architect, he probably understood a side of Rotterdam. I mean, again, my words are only partly legitimate because I'm not really so knowledgeable about Rotterdam. But I know a little bit about Peter Wilson, and I have a feeling about the city. It is not a spectacular building necessarily, but maybe this is its quality, that it's a theater that is modernistic, and maybe this connects, maybe it's just a big maybe there, with that post-war architecture in Rotterdam. I don't know. I have a feeling that Wilson inspired himself a little bit from an architecture prior to our last, I don't know, 20, 30 years. And the inside is also, moderately modern, without extravagancies. I know Peter Wilson because he used to win all the time a prize at competition I took part in, sometimes Shinkensinku International Design Competition in Japan. He drew unbelievably well, and I think he might also teach maybe either at Bartlett or AA. Anyway, he built in Rotterdam this theater, Luxor Theater. I don't know exactly when it was done. Well, inside, it is as it is. Now, this is a famous factory, right? Daliana and Florian, which was built, I think, before the war, but it's still very, I read that it's very, sought after by architectural tourists, and that it has a certain level of modernity, if I can say so, that is inviolable even using the standards of today. With these diagonals here made me think of Lina Bobardi in her transformation of that factory in Brazil. It's an interesting, and there is a video, I think, if I remember correctly, there is this factory was a very special constructive event. There are a lot of sophistications here having to do with design, that the client was very open-minded. And here I only show a few pictures, but I think it's worth exploring.
This is one of the, I mean, for me at least, one of the most amazing pieces in architecture here in Rotterdam, because I mean it's the factory for vanille, which is tobacco, and you see with the glass that the idea was to bring enough light for the workers inside, not working in the dark. And then of course the mushroom concrete column structure is very interesting. Of course, all the conveyor belts going up and down. And yeah, nowadays it hosts sort of creative offices, and they have festivals going on there. So, this is a very interesting building because you could reuse it into something else than a factory without any problem. A little bit like the, what's it called, the Fiat Lingotto building, which was transformed with a Nervi structure inside. I would say, probably architecturally, historically equally important, and also very interesting of the new use or the reuse of it.
Yes, this building deserves, I think, more study from my part, and maybe from other people as well. Yeah, it's, if you build something like this today, you say, well, it's the building of our time. But it is not so new, and even inside is convincing. It's a good work. Okay, the Rotterdam City Tower project. This is a futuristic dream of someone. It was not built. I just included it here to show that there are also so-called visionaries working for Rotterdam, and. Now, this is a church which I like, Paul's Church. Pauluskerk, I like it, you know. I like it because it is so very different from the churches that we build here. And I, I admire the spirit of you know, non-conformism and, you know, geometrical joy and manipulation of, it's really about coming together. It's more like a gathering room, and I think it works. And yeah, I don't know why other countries are so stiff about. I'm talking particularly about the you know, Greek Orthodox churches and or Orthodox Christianity, which is so stiff. You know, they would never do something like this. They would die, rather die than do something like this. You know. And it's so sad because my belief is that if human beings are, you know, I mean, sorry, I'm talking about from the point of view of our religion. If man is made in the, you know, resembling God, should resemble God also in terms of creativity, and not be happy with just repeating dogmas and all kinds of pastiches. So anyway.
Yeah, Dan, this church, I mean, although I think Florian and I do not like the appearance of this, this is really in front of the central station, Rotterdam.
Is it? Okay, thank you.
And this Pauluskerk is very important because I know they serve soups to the homeless and they take care of the junkies. So I think the presence there near the central station is very important because homeless people and the junkies, they rely on the, you know, on the charity and the soup from this Pauluskerk.
Right. Thank you for telling us this. I didn't know.
And Powerhouse Company has, or used to have, the office next door. I don't know if you know them, sort of up and coming next generation or generation after MBRDB, more our age architects in the Netherlands.
What is their name?
Powerhouse Company.
Nana de Roo. He used to work at OMA, and he's also, I think, is he dean of the Berlage?
He
right
used
now?
to. No, not anymore. He used to. When the Berlage went from Rotterdam into TU Delft.
But Berlage Institute is still alive? I mean,
as a faculty now in TU Delft, not independently anymore.
But the school still exists?
Yeah, but as a faculty or department or chair within, like, you know, TU Delft, you have urbanism, you have real estate, and you have architecture, engineering, technology, and you have the Berlage now there as a sort of its own thing.
Yes.
But under the umbrella of TU Delft, because before it was independent like the AA, and then it went into monetary trouble. The master degree you got there was not accredited, also like with the AA, and then it sort of got absorbed by TU Delft. How that exactly went, I don't know. It was after our time, and it was not very transparent.
Maybe one day, Florian and Daliana, maybe if you have the time and the interest, I would like, you know, to learn more about this school, the one that you attended, and maybe even, you know, have some faculty from here or students or from other places, because I have a feeling that it was a very good school, the one that you had a chance to attend in the Netherlands.
I think it was a very interesting school, but it also had, I would say, in this very short period of its existence as an independent school, it had also different phases it went through. So I think the earlier phase from Herzberger is completely different than the second phase from Wil Arets, and we were in the third phase with Alejandro Sayarapolo as the dean. And then after that, it sort of came into financial trouble and was integrated into the TU Delft. Eko Paravoto, by the way, he was also at the Berlage, I think for 1 year, so he can tell about the more earlier phases, whereas we can talk more about the Alejandro Serra Polo phase, the FOA phase of the Berlach Institute.
No, but it's interesting, just like the Bauhaus also had 3 phases and 3 different directors. So you studied under Mies, so to speak, you know, the last phase of the Bauhaus.
Yes, so to speak.
Yeah, maybe one day, not now. I'm a little bit tired, and I imagine also you are. It's getting a little bit late, but maybe at some other time we dedicate some time and maybe invite some people to talk about architecture and education, because I think you know, it's a very important subject, and I don't know if we can so-called solve anything, but would be nice to hear some experiences from you, some impressions, and also, you know, maybe invite other people from other schools. We'll see. Anyway, so this is, I imagine that block of flats was also built by the builders of the church. I don't know, maybe not.
Yes.
Okay, it was, okay. So, okay. As you can see, I did like the church, sorry. Now, of course, Florian, please get ready to tell us something, because you worked for UN for 3 years, I think. And they did this bridge, the Erasmus Bridge, after all. So being that today is the birthday of Erasmus, no, he died today, sorry, Erasmus. Do you feel like saying anything about this bridge, Florian, or Daliana for that matter?
No, I think I mean, this is one of the first sort of icons of Rotterdam. This cable bridge, the suspension bridge.
Yes.
It's a very, very elegant building, I must say. I like it a lot. Also on the right side, which you almost don't see underneath, there's some sort of interesting architectural elements shoved under the bridge. I think Ben van Berkel and Caroline Bosse from UN Studio, they won this competition when they were really, I think, relatively young, if I'm not mistaken, in their 30s. And what I heard is that the city planning office of Rotterdam had really good engineers, and this was sort of a collaboration then between them, and the sort of engineering happened, I think, from the city engineer, from the city side. But it's really an amazing building. I mean, very elegant, very slender. It's good.
Yes.
What I also heard, but I cannot verify, is that the public voted for this. It was a competition, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and the public voted for this one, and then it gets built. I mean, I must say, Rotterdam City has a lot of architectural initiatives where public can vote, as well as I think they have a what do they call it, Florian? This Rotterdam Initiative.
Initiative.
That initiative where anyone could make a proposal and propose a budget, and if it's selected, it will be built. So residents sometimes work together with architects and developers to propose for a swimming pool, for example, or an ice skating rink, something like that. It's a very vibrant city.
So you mean even if there is no competition, if you want to make a proposal for the city, you can do it?
Yes.
I go tomorrow to Rotterdam. This is my dream city. I mean, come on, you know, really, of course, even if nothing is accepted, but to have the chance to express some thoughts and, you know, have the municipality consider it, it seems to me incredible.
I think Dana will join you.
I'm impressed, I'm telling you. Really, no, you ruined my life now, because I cannot continue. From tomorrow, there will be no presentations on Zoom. I have to make plans for the Rotterdam. Sorry, I have to go. I know where to find a bike with 10 euros now. I mean, I don't know any longer because they don't sell there, but I understand that there must be somewhere in the city. Now I have to find a place to sleep, and if I have a bike, and if I can sketch proposals for the city, what a life. Thank you very much, Daliana and Florian, for ruining my future, because I feel like living right now. Anyway, it is an elegant building, it's true. Very elegant. And I saw some Anyway, I shouldn't mention this because I don't want to become too nationalistic. But I saw some images of sculpture by Brancusi associated with this bridge. I don't know if the project that won the competition had some reference to, but then many people like that father of one of the fathers of modern modern sculpture, and I don't see actually any relation with Brancusi, but it is a good bridge, and I actually like it more than Calatrava. Okay, although Calatrava sometimes does good things, but not for the city of Venice. He ruined the city of Venice with a bridge he built there, and I'm not surprised the Venetians hate it. They might even lose their lives there on the slippery surface. Really, Calatrava did a bad job there. They could have done better. Anyway, here you have UN, and in the background Rem Koolhaas, and I don't know about the sculpture. Yeah. Okay, move forward. The Rotterdam, we saw this, but we have new pictures, more details of this work.
What I find quite remarkable in this building is that you see this sort of modernism coming through here. I mean, it has a sort of almost like a lever building or facade, but then of course the play happens with the big volumes and the shifting and the stacking on top of each other.
Right. Now it's good. Bravo, Rem. And a nice picture here, you know, maybe photoshopped a little bit, I don't know. Such a dark city, dark sky, but there is a light coming, light, you know, on the buildings. Okay. Do you think, I mean, the apartments there are expensive? I'm not asking because I want to buy. I just am curious.
I think so, yes. I mean, Rotterdam prices for apartments is, I mean, it used to be relatively cheap, Rotterdam, in comparison to Amsterdam, The Hague. But for this higher end stuff, it's also expensive, yes.
Right.
Now, since a couple of years ago, I think Rotterdam was sort of declared the hippest city or something in Europe, and it draws a lot of attention. So I compare Rotterdam always a little bit with Berlin. Of course, this is a bit of a stretch, but you know, after the reunification, you know, there was a lot of empty land and a lot of opportunity, and it was cheap, and a lot of artists went there, right? And slowly, Berlin got built up and then attracted a certain artistic community. And Rotterdam also then, like I said, as the harbor moved out and the whole society, maybe from manual labor, changed a little bit more into knowledge society. It was always also the rebuilding of the city, more of an architectural city, right, of an experimental city in that sense, as you can see. So it has these less solidified, less structurally layered, put into place creativity in comparison to Amsterdam. Amsterdam, of course, with Jordan and these old quarters and these pack houses, these storage houses, is picturesque, right? Everybody likes Amsterdam, but it also suffers from this mass tourism in a way that in the whole city center, you cannot, as an Amsterdamer, you cannot buy anything properly because it's full of French fry shops and trash shops, right? But you know, Rotterdam as such, I find is much more of a even harsher and of course not as pretty, but it's much more of a livable city than Amsterdam is, you know. So
it's honest city.
Yeah, it's honestly ugly versus Amsterdam is sort of beautified, but actually I don't like it so much, I must say.
I mean, so, in the Netherlands, Amsterdammers and Rotterdammers, they do not like each other. Also because of football.
Right.
But to imagine there is a municipality office in this building, it's amazing because the city of Rotterdam is housed there.
Okay, now we are approaching the end. Is this work that was not yet finished, but it is it started the construction.
It's almost finished now. They have
It's
the
almost
facade
finished,
on.
no? I didn't see pictures of it totally, you know, finished, but
A couple of weeks ago, I saw some photos.
yeah, it's done.
Yeah, it's almost done. The
Almost
facade
done,
is
yes.
on.
Interesting work by this adventurous firm, and I'm happy that they exist. Yeah. So
Yeah, next to it is the Boymans Museum. I mean, historically speaking, so you see the lighthouse and the tower. It's also an important building, and it's amazing art collection. And the water in front, what you see, was used to be the NIE, the National Architecture Institute. And what is it called now, Dana? I forgot.
Het Nieuwe Institute, the new
Het
institute.
Nieuwe. So this is really a cultural cluster. And then if you would continue to the right to the bowl, you would walk through a very nice park, 5 minutes, and then you're at the Kunsthal. So this is sort of this museum quarter, the cultural part of Rotterdam. I mean, Rotterdam as such is not very huge. It's, I think, 650,000 inhabitants, but it really has a lot of stuff going on there.
I mean, you can bike in 15 minutes by bike. Everything is reachable in Rotterdam. And what is amazing about this building, if I may add, Dan, is that the brief was to make a storage for the museum, not the museum itself. And of course, MVRDB is amazing in this, and convince, make a new concept. What if the storage is browsable? And so it's actually then a browsable storage archive.
right.
Like the Schaulager idea of Herzog und Demmerand, that you can see what is stored.
Thank you very much for everything you say. Thank you. Okay, so a section through the bowl. I think that's it. So we had quite an evening. I mean, for 3 hours we went through Ungers and Buckminster Fuller and Amsterdam by the way of Erasmus. I don't think anyone else celebrated the 3 of them at the same time. But this is my specialty, to unite people over the centuries just because of a coincidence that they are connected through the day of either when one dies or one is born. We lost some people in the meantime, but I understand, when people come to attend the presentation and then they get 3, and then we have incredible interventions like Daliana's and Florian's. And so, yeah, you need marathon runners for something like this. But I am very, very grateful that we had a chance to have Florian and Daliana with us today. And I don't know about tomorrow. I know Otto Wagner is coming, and Otto Wagner is very important to me. And of course, I lost the PowerPoint presentation that I had made for him 1 or 2 years ago. So now I have to make another one. Some other incredible architects are coming, even Fischer von Erlach, also from Vienna, great architect, and Konstantin Melnikov, and many, Sigurd Leverens, and it will be still a very rich July from the point of view of these meetings on Zoom. So I'm very, very grateful to you that you attended, because I have moments of depression when I'm thinking of the 2,000 students here who refuse to attend, but I'm grateful to those of you who are here, and I see already, some are still here, and I'm happy that, I really, it's an incredible chance to have a live encounter and here people, you know, very well informed and well intentioned and knowledgeable people who lived in, studied in Rotterdam, to make comments that are spontaneously so valuable. I don't know. I mean, you know, it's really a great chance. And if I regret anything, is that other people are not aware of this chance they have. Just one click away, and you have someone who studied at the Berlage Institute in Rotterdam and who worked there and knows all kinds of interesting things. I think there are riches here, and some people are not aware what they lose. But let's be positive and be appreciative for those of us who are here. And what can I say? You know, we'll continue somehow. Although, believe me, I have moments of discouragement because I do not understand.
I mean, don't worry. I mean, I tremendously enjoy your presentations, and also that I can jump in here and then and make my comments. I mean, I was a little bit the same when I was a student, at least in my first studies in Germany. You know, I did my projects and I was very intensely working on my projects, and there was always the other people who knew a lot more about architectural theory and other architects, and I didn't care so much. So what I have to do is, of course, now 20 years later, I sit here with you and listening to stuff I missed out in my first studies. So
no, but you know,
happy.
I'm sorry, Florian. I think you see yourself too critically. You know a lot of things, and you articulate them so well, and so does Daliana. Really, I'm very grateful to both of you.
We are grateful for your sessions. Very good. Thank you.
No, but I'm absolutely sure everyone here appreciates you know, this chance to encounter your thoughts and your memories and your experiences, and really anyway, so we did it today again. You know, so I guess actually tomorrow is I think tomorrow, yes, it's Otto Wagner. I don't believe it, you know, because I cannot play games with Otto Wagner. He's because I love Vienna, and Otto Wagner is Vienna, and I don't know, my night will be spent working on a presentation for Otto Wagner. You know, it's in a way ridiculous. Why do I want to pay the homages, so to speak, exactly on their birthdays? But then when to do it, you know, because they accumulate. People tell me, do it once a week, then you'll have a grand audience. But how could I squeeze in one day per week, you know, 10 great architects? It's impossible. Even what we do now is kind of almost insane, you know, to talk in the same evening about Ungers and Buckminster Fuller and Rotterdam, you know. But we did it, and I'm very, very grateful again to everybody who attended, and with special thanks to Daliana and Florian, who are very, very generous. So let's applaud them. I applaud them right now.
Oh, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dan. We applaud you. I mean, I must say that these sessions with you have been really important for Florian and I. I mean, sitting here in Indonesia, I mean, it's been very nourishing, and it, you know, makes us more creative and make us think about these things we miss. And, you know, thank you so much.
Well, we thank you, and you know, we'll meet again, if not tomorrow, one of the next days, because occasions for interesting celebrations will pop up every day. I have in fact the list with all 12 months from July now to June next year. So there are about 500 architects of the most beautiful kind, plus unexpected events, you know, because for example, Rasmus, I didn't know he was connected with and is connected with today. I found out last night that he died on this day. So anyway, For me, it's a pleasure to have these meetings, even if I get discouraged. So please, from time to time, please tell me that it's not worthless what I try to do, because the indifference of the students frightens me, and of most students, but not all of them. And so there are a few here whose presence I appreciate a lot, is Anna and Judith, and there were a few others before, but they left at one moment. Anyway, so do you want to say something, or should we say good night and take a rest for the next day?
Yeah, I'd like to retire because this is 1:30 a.m. and tomorrow I have to wake up at 7:30. But thank you so much, everyone, and yeah,
Yes.
wish you.
Now, Daliana and Florian, I mean, yes, you are already in the midst of the night, in the middle of the night. This makes me even more appreciative for what you do. You are very, very generous. So please go to sleep, and we'll try to go to sleep too before we have to make presentations about Otto Wagner.
No, but this is the reason that for me the time is perfect. I mean, even maybe 10 is a little bit late, but this is why I can attend, because usually if it would be 3 o'clock for you, I have to work and I have to take care of a kid and all this stuff. So for me, it's perfect. Instead of watching Netflix, I can do this.
Right. Florian, please say this more often. I have to tell the very same thing to 2,000 students and 300 professors here who are probably watching exactly what you are avoiding to watch. Vatsal, what time is it in Ahmedabad?
So good night.
Good night, Florian, and thank you again. I'm very grateful. Vatsal, what time is it in Ahmedabad?
It's 12 o'clock in the night, and I'm awake, and so is my wife here. She's waiting.
Hello, hi. So you said it's midnight, 12 o'clock?
Yeah, it's 12 o'clock.
It's not so late. You can stay for 1 or 2 more hours. No, I'm joking. Okay.
Yeah, it was a nice lecture. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you. Thank you for being present. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Everyone. Ina Kalmanovic, see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
We are colleagues. Me and Ina, we are
yes.
Cool.
Yes, I'm living in Stockholm.
In Stockholm, very, very nice. Maybe we will make a presentation about Stockholm.
Yes, please. Yes, and then I can maybe explain some things about Swedish architecture.
No, it will be great. And in fact, Sigurd Leverens will have his birthday this month, and I plan a presentation on him. So,
yeah, that's great. Do you have presentations each day at 6 o'clock?
Yes, can you believe it?
Oh, fantastic.
I know, it's totally crazy.
Architecture marathon. It's a bulimic, man.
Yes, it's this is what happens when you don't have a life. You make architectural marathons.
Okay.
Very nice, really.
Thank you. So let's do a very beautiful homage to Sigurd Leverens and Gunnar Asplund. Also, I love Gunnar Asplund, but I don't think he was born this month. But Leverens is in 1 or 2 weeks from now. Yes.
That's great. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you very much. Yes, me too.
Yes.
Good night.
Okay. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you for being present. Bye.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello. Who is this?
It's Judith.
Judith, I don't see you any longer. I don't know what happened here.
Oh, I'm Judith.
Yes. Hi.
And I have a question. If you have just some more minutes.
Sure.
I was always a bit puzzled and confused about how architects can design bridges. Would it be possible if you could explain a little bit the process, because you showed us the bridge in Rotterdam and you also mentioned Calatrava, and I'm a bit confused of what the role of the architect is in that project.
Well, you know, architects design bridges many times in history. This doesn't happen only now, you know. Even Palladio designed a bridge. And I actually think it's a very interesting program for an architect because it's more engineering, apparently, but it's more than engineering because even symbolically, a bridge is about uniting two sides, opposite sides, on the left and right side of a river or whatever. So a bridge is, in a way, I mean, I have a tendency to get carried away by metaphysics, but I think any building should be a bridge, any building. And I can explain why, not in the sense, not in a concrete sense, but symbolically. For example, a city hall should bridge between the government and society, the city, right? Or a school should bridge between professors and students. Unfortunately, it doesn't do that so often. But a school, anything, because anything that is done, and not just in architecture, also in art, I said this before, and I don't know if you heard me saying it. Etymologically, the word art meant bridge. This was the oldest definition of the word art in Sanskrit. Art equals bridge equals God. So any kind of creative gesture of an artistic nature is bridging, is because it's about communication. So from this point of view, to return to what you said about, I mean, your question about architects designing bridges, I think, yes, it's an engineering problem, but it's also an architectural, that is an artistic problem because you are bridging, you are connecting. It's about connecting. And I think an architect should welcome the occasion to build a bridge. Yeah, I would love to design a bridge because I don't think it's easy. I think it's complicated. If you take your role seriously, if you only think of engineering, well, that's another story. But I think it's a change. For example, this great I always confuse this. Slovenian architect Plečnik. Plečnik designed, if you check in Ljubljana, his bridges, they are beautiful. So architects are very involved in building bridges, and they were in history. And unfortunately, you know, not every city builds many bridges, but you know, for example, in the Netherlands, Piet Kramer, and I could send you the PowerPoint presentation because I have one, I presented him. He built many bridges. In fact, I think hundreds of bridges in Amsterdam. Hundreds of bridges, can you believe it? Or at least their numbers are like this, 328, bridge 402 or so on. I imagine I don't think they have so many, but their numbers are like this. Anyway, yeah, it's a very interesting project, a theme program, a bridge, I think. But I understand in a way your question, because yes, a bridge has a utilitarian function. But then how do you make this utilitarian? You make a bridge, but it's not enough just to connect the two sides literally. It's also important to do it metaphorically or symbolically. And also, of course, not to collapse. I mean, there are certain responsibilities there. You cannot play games with a bridge, you know. I don't know if I answered your question. Maybe I am a little bit tired and maybe not too inspired at this point. It was a long day, believe me. I am crazy. I mean, who does presentations for 3 hours and not about one single subject, you know? And I'm more and more tempted to do this, to connect I mean, I complicated my life myself. Nobody asked me to talk about Erasmus of Rotterdam and meaning about Rotterdam. If nobody asked me, you know, someone would have said, okay, I'll talk about Buckminster Fuller, and that's it. And now I had to talk about Ungers as well and Rotterdam. And there are a few days next month, and maybe even this month, where there will be 4 presentations, because there are 4 people on that day. What can I do? Too many geniuses born on the same day. What can I do? I cannot exclude one. I cannot say I'm not going to talk about this one. It's my duty, right? It's like when you have several children, you have to love all of them, not just a selection of them. I'm joking a little bit. But Judith, I want to invite you, and I want to invite everybody. And in fact, we have here 2 people, Alexandra and David, who made excellent presentations themselves. So I would like this to be more like a collective action. If you, for example, if you want, I'll send you the list with the architects to be celebrated this month and next month. And if you like one, or you are interested to learn about one, you can make a presentation yourself. And believe me, this is the best way to learn, actually, by trying to explain to other people what you learned. Okay. Yeah, in time, I would like this to be truly a chorus, you know, like a constellation of presentations by many people.
Okay, it sounds great. If you could email me the list, that would be amazing.
Yeah, but do I have your email address? Because I'm a little bit confused. Because there is a Judith, and there is someone with a name close to you. Please forgive me. I don't have the memory of names. Could you write your email address on the chat so then yes, I can? That is, if I don't close the whole thing down by mistake, because this happened to me.
Yes. So I wrote it right now.
Okay, you wrote it. Let me. But also, I suggest if you want to send me an email, because who knows what I touch here wrongly, and the whole chat thing disappears. So, okay. Do you have my email address? Because you can send me an email.
I don't have your email address.
Okay, it's the same name, Dan. If yes, you can write it down, DANCOMA. I'm not proud of my name, but that's my name. At yahoo.com. And just, you don't have to say anything. Just send an email, so then I'll send you the list.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And thank you for the inspiring response.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't know about the definition of art in Sanskrit. It sounds very, very nice, and it's actually a thing that I was wondering about too. And,
yeah, I mean, I am saying is the last one, the oldest that I found, but you know, I'm not really an etymologist, but it did preoccupy me. Yes. What was the oldest definition of art? And I don't really like in general definitions, but art preoccupies me, of course, and it does make sense actually. This definition, it does make sense because it's about communication. And yes, there is God there too, because initially art and religion were together, because art was a form of worship initially. But it's not like this any longer. But that's how it was in ancient societies. Anyway, okay. If anyone else wants to say something, if not, we'll just say good night to each other and see you with Otto Wagner. Do not miss Otto Wagner, because I mean, I don't know if I'm able by tomorrow to make a PowerPoint presentation, but he was truly a very, very important architect, as you know. So there is much to say about him. David, Alexandra, do you want to say something? Anna, do you want to say something? Melissa, do you want to say something?
I would say goodbye, but it was a very nice presentation, and thank you.
Thank you. We were very lucky with Florian and Daliana. Thank you, David, and thank you, Alexandra, as well. And thank you, Anna, and thank you, Melissa, and thank you, Judith, again. Okay, I'll see you next time, whenever that will be. But tomorrow at the same time, I will be here, God willing.
Okay, have a great evening.
Okay, thank you, Anna.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Good evening.
Okay, bye.
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 Dan,
Melissa?
are you still okay?
I
Can
am
you hear
still
me?
here, yes.
Oh, yeah. Because before you can't hear me, so.
No, I do hear you.
Oh yeah. So I want to ask if you put the recording in YouTube or somewhere.
To put it where?
Put it online, like in YouTube.
I don't know how to do this, Melissa. I'm very primitive in this. Even I know I record. This one is recorded too, but they are not edited.